across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum with me, Samara Gill, in for Kevin O'Sullivan, who you just heard for 3 hours. So why not listen to me for another 3? Why not? Look, I mean, this news day has been madness. We've got tens of thousands of people arriving here, and somehow we're shocked to discover that nearly 500 a day are applying for benefits. Yes, benefits on the back of your taxpayer dollars, on the back of your hard-earned cash. They are living off us. They are treating Britain like it's a food bank, and I'm not happy about it. I think something needs to stop. Shabana, again, with her wet sock policies, has sort of said, oh, I'm going to crack down on this. All migrants won't get benefits unless they need them. What does that mean, Shabana? She really needs to pick one. I mean, just out there, I was looking at a tweet and I was sort of seeing that she's gone, well, if you come here, it's not your right to settle. It's a privilege. Decide who you want to be. Do you want to be hardlined or do you want to be soft touch? Because at the moment, the middle is getting us absolutely nowhere. Meanwhile, we've also got the BBC, that great cathedral of truth and impartiality. Well, it's under fire again, and not just for lies and manipulation. It's the Bashir scandal. It's reared its ugly head once again. I've got Andy Webb coming on the show in just 20 minutes. He is the person who revealed all this, and in my opinion, it was sort of a domino effect after that for the BBC. Could he have pushed the domino to make the BBC finally fall over? I hope so. We're going to talk to him all about that. Also, was the BBC responsible for killing Princess Diana? We're going to answer those questions and we're going to ask them. He's got some crazy answers. I've been reading this book here all day. You are not going to want to miss that interview. And I'm also going to talk to Tish Hyman, who, if you weren't the 100 million people that saw on Twitter that she put out a video saying that there was a man repeatedly in her changing rooms invading her space, then you're the one who missed out, because she has gone completely viral and she's coming here on this show for a UK exclusive to talk about just what's going on. Now, this man that's on your screen right now, if you're listening, that is a man in a crop top. It's hard for me to keep a straight face. That is disgusting. And you know what I always think with the US? Things always happen 4 years in advance over there, and then it will come here. It will come right to our shores. We've also got TikTok smuggling ads. We've got French nets to stop the dinghies. We've got Tesco renaming Christmas trees. We've got exclusive, sort of this inclusive cinema cancelling a free speech documentary. We've got that and so much more. So call me on 0344 499 1000 and let's get this show going. In the studio with me is one of my favourite people. It's Myron Sentil-Nathan.
Sentil-Nathan, yeah.
Sentil-Nathan.
Yeah.
You need a stage name. You need a stage name, Myron.
Myron Nathan. Sometimes they call me Dr. Nathan.
Oh, see, I like. Can I just call you Dr. Nathan? I kind of like that. It's very authoritative.
I'm still scarred by that clip of that guy in the crop top. So
yeah.
I'm still recovering.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk to the woman who was actually practically assaulted by him at 8 p.m. You're not going to want to miss that. Tish Hyman is infuriated. She's actually been speaking truth to power. She's been going over to congressmen and shouting at them. So she's got a lot to say. So yeah, I mean, if you're scarred by seeing it, imagine her in the change room, this man just up behind her.
Yeah, no, I was also thinking maybe would I look good in a crop top as well? I was thinking, you know, there was so many diverse thoughts entering my brain at that moment.
Well, stay tuned. We'll get Myron in a crop top later, and we'll have that on visual for you if you tune in on YouTube, if you're tuning in via the radio. Look, I want to talk about something pretty serious here. When I saw this headline, I was actually quite shocked.
Yeah.
Now, we have a lot of people on benefits in this country, 8 million to be exact. I think that's too much, but I also think if you have paid into the system, or maybe your forefathers paid into the system, you are kind of entitled to those benefits if you fall on hard times.
Yeah.
Now, what's really been going on now is that 1.4 million new people on benefits
Yeah.
have cropped up under the Labour government.
Yeah.
Labour isn't working.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about this?
Well, I think Shabana Mahmood's talking tough. I think Gwen Towler's coined the term Mahmood music,
Oh, I like that.
which is basically to describe the fact that she is talking tough, but the reality that's going to be actually implemented is going to be virtually nothing. Look, it's no coincidence. The budget's coming up. When the budget gets announced, the sense of injustice, especially by the middle class, the alarm clock generation, who are going to feel like these tax rises, cost of living crisis, and then they'll see the boats coming over. The boats will represent the absolute tearing up of the social contract and the sense of injustice that's going to be felt so deeply. That is why Shabana Mahmood is coming out all guns blazing, and I'm going to take on the migrants. I'm going to get this benefits bill down. But the reality is, it is Mahmood music, because very unlikely to get through her party.
Oh my gosh, I mean, I was just speaking to actually a Labour backbencher who was like, no, we're not doing, let's just say she was referencing a far-right figure.
Yeah.
And
Enoch
saying,
Powell or something,
well, Enoch Powell, one of the others who has actually endorsed Mahmood's plans, and she's saying, no, that's not going to happen. And I think this is the issue with Labour. They're trying to please everyone and pleasing nobody.
The thing is this, the Denmark Prime Minister, this is all modelled on the Denmark model.
Yes.
The Denmark Prime Minister, when she was asked, why are you implementing these so-called far-right policies, she said, because I want to protect the welfare state for my citizens. She's a true lefty. She understands what it is to be on the left. What we see at the moment with the pearl-clutching people, the backbenchers of Labour, by the way, at least 2/3 of them are going to lose their seat to Reform.
Yes, even Wes Streeting's got something like a 1% or 1.7.
That's the independent guards, independent, but the others are going to lose their seats to Reform. So their actual constituents want Shabana Mahmood's policies to actually work. But these people are not really genuine, sincere people, because if you want to protect the downtrodden, the disabled, those who really need benefits, you can't have open borders. And they simply have not correlated those two things at the same time. And so, yeah, I wish Mahmood well. Look, it's going to work well with the Boris wave. I think for the small boats, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't think someone coming from Sudan on a boat who's paid a few £1,000s to a people smuggler is going to care about whether you get indefinite leave to remain. They want to know that as soon as I set foot into this country, I'm safe as far as they're concerned, because there is no highway to mass deportations. That's the issue. And I want to just say this, Shabana Mahmood, she thinks she's neutralising Reform. Unless she implements a policy of mass deportations and we see flights taking off every hour, she's not, everything she does and doesn't do is actually going to cede ground to Reform. If she doesn't do anything, everyone's going to vote Reform out of rage.
Correct.
If she does do something and goes halfway there, talks tough, banning, increasing the settlement status, you have to learn English, all the rest of it, all she's doing is actually laying the ground for Reform to come and do the proper job.
Yes,
right?
massively.
So that's why I say it's a lose-lose situation unless you're going to go full mass deportations.
I mean, you're right. That's what I have always been saying. Unless it's you land on these shores, you will not be settled in this country. You will be deported. Unless it is that, the boats aren't going to stop coming. Because I was actually talking to an expert just a couple of days ago, and he was saying there are people that are paying almost $40,000 just to get a 1-week visa into any of these European countries or Britain, just as a landing fee, so they can get here and then disappear into the system. And that's what we're dealing with at the moment. We're not dealing with people who say, oh, if it's 10 years, if it's 20 years, then I'm not going to hop on that boat. So that's not true.
The reason why you cannot trust what Mahmood is saying is because she is simultaneously talking about safe and legal routes. And you mentioned in your open monologue there about how she's flip-flopping. If you're going to open up safe and legal routes, that is a highway to the very people crossing the boats, crossing on the boats. If you're coming from Afghanistan, if you're coming from Sudan, Syria, you're going to get asylum. It's as simple as that. And Alison Pearson in the Telegraph did that wonderful, shocking, one of the most shocking pieces I've read in a long time about that whistleblower from the Home Office who openly says that we are granting asylum to people who I know are going to be raping people who are like my daughters.
Yeah.
Right? The Home Office is utterly broken in the sense that, and if you have a broken system and the Home Office granting asylum to people who you know are going to commit sexual offences, how on earth can you create safe and legal routes? This is why there should be a pause on all asylum. And on the backdrop of the Boris wave, mass immigration, broken borders with the boats, and a broken asylum system with a broken Home Office, we need to put a pause on all asylum. That's the way I think until we consolidate, understand and rebuild this Home Office from scratch.
Exactly right. And you know what? I know this might be an extreme view, but just one of these asylum seekers raping one of our women or girls is one too many. Because these people have already broken the law. We know that they're immune to that. They've thrown their documents potentially out of the boat. They don't want their identity to be known. The most popular birthday for asylum seekers is 001 2000. You know, so we know that we don't know much about them, and it is the fear of the unknown. I think we need to understand that we've got a lot of checks in this country. I mean, this country is trying to introduce digital ID, for God's sake, to try and know who these people are. But you don't even need to give a fingerprint if you're an illegal migrant. And this is the issue. This is the lack of control. No, the thing is, the classic left response to that would be, look, rapes happen and sexual assault happens, you know, in all parts of the country, with all demographics. You know, why are you focusing on the migrants, Samara? The reason why we focus on the migrants is because these are imported criminals. And so every crime that is committed, as you said, has the fingerprints of the Home Office, has the fingerprints of the government upon it. So that's the reason why it's really, really important. The other thing I just want to say is that Mahmood, I mean, she was there sitting cross-legged on the shores of Greece, welcoming migrants and pleading for them to have amnesty to work. She was basically Zach Polanski. Yeah, she was. Right? She was. She makes Zach Polanski look like a sort of a more conservative type. She really did. I mean, her digital footprint is outrageous. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. And so, look, she sits with Zach Polanski. She then gets into government, and then she gets into the Home Office, and she's essentially radicalised by the Home Office and the actual and reform on one side, the pressure of reform, and the actual need that the Labour are actually tanking in the polls. So, you know, Robert Jenrick had the same sort of similar conversion as well. I actually think both of them are probably genuine. Actually, yes, but it's interesting that you mentioned Zach Polanski, because I think he's going to be the real winner out of all this. I really do, unfortunately. Zach Polanski for PM, 03444991000 is the number. Let me know how you would feel about Zach Polanski being our Prime Minister, because it's actually looking more and more likely by the day. The more that Shabana Mahmood upsets her voter base to try and please a voter base that would never vote for her. Yeah, no, I saw in the poll, find out now, I think Labour are like 14%. They're behind the Tories. I think if I remember that correct, behind the Tories, behind the Green Party as well. I mean, but Zach Polanski, one-trick pony. Everything that goes wrong with the country, whether it's NHS waiting lists, whether it's social cohesion, whether it's potholes, whether it's border control, everything comes down to taxing 160 people who are billionaires. Everything. He cannot stop talking about a wealth tax. And he will say to me, "Oh, you can't stop talking about borders and migration." I said, "Look, borders are fundamental to a nation state." Right? If you don't have borders, you can't really. That feeds into every single avenue of government, right? I mean, Zach Polanski is not even his real name. His real name is Paul Holden. Oh, really? Yeah, it's a little bit less sexy than Zach Polanski, which honestly, Polanski isn't exactly the best last name either. Why did he change his name then? He used to obviously be a hypnotist who would enlarge women's breasts trying to bury with his mind. Identity, I think, well, look, his reasons for changing his name is that he wanted to be closer to his heritage, blah, 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 blah. I think Paul Holden sounds like some sort of, you know, like every other man on the street. Exactly, whereas Zach Polanski has the sort of Zoran Mamdani vibe to it. Speaking of Zach, I've got your number. I have texted you and asked you to come on the show. So do come on the show. Let me know why you changed your name. I'd love to know. Just come on. But his alliance with Mothin Ali, gosh. I mean, so this is the marriage that I think we never thought we'd see. That is very dangerous and potentially abusive to this country. Don't you think? The marriage between extreme Islamist pro-Gaza views like Mothin Ali holds and the Green Party's liberalism. What do you think about that? So I've been thinking about this, and I'm thinking that, you know, you have certain ethnic minorities, you've got people like Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, who go into the Conservative Party. They gravitate towards conservatism because it's about they believe in the individual, capitalism, free market economics. And then you've got what I would class as the Islamist vote, which gravitates towards the left. And I think they do that primarily because the left want the multicultural dream and they still believe in it, but extremely naively. But I also think the Islamist agenda is to engineer some kind of big state situation so that they can somehow allow the state to facilitate their agenda of the Islamization. And I believe Mothin Ali is part of this. I believe he wants Sharia. I believe that the independent Gazans who are in there want some form of Sharia, and they believe in a big state socialist agenda to fuel and put on steroids their kind of aim to make the Islamification and the introduction of
like laws or principles that feed into their communities.
And obviously Mothin Ali isn't here to respond to that. I would also welcome Mothin onto my show to talk about it.
I would love to chat to him.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing him scream Allahu Akbar when he won his election gave me enough information as to who he is and who he represents. My issue with him, to be honest, is that I just don't think he represents the British interests and the British people.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think we can see with the Your Party, which is even more of a catastrophic split between Jeremy Corbyn, who's in Zara Sultana's words, a sexist man, socialist, and Zara Sultana, that these marriages don't work.
No, eventually they're going to collapse. I mean, Your Party, I think, is a window into the future of the Green Party.
Interesting.
I think that the Green Party, Zach is he's a pretty good communicator. I'll give him credit. He's a very good communicator. He knows his lines.
He's an actor.
Oh, really?
He used to be an actor. So
no wonder.
That makes me think, how the hell did he failed actor, but how the hell did he just crop out of nowhere and start, saying all these lines? Failed actor, failed hypnotist, now quite successful Green Party leader.
So I think the alliance, the Islamo-Socialist alliance, will continue because they're doing well in the polls. And, if you're on a winning horse, you stay on the winning horse. And so Mothin Ali will stay put until it starts to crumble, in which case he'll break away. But look, the independents are coming, and Labour especially. I don't want to see Angela Rayner on, begging people about the Gazan votes like she did during the general election previously. I don't want to see Palestinian colours on Labour leaflets like I did during the general election when I was campaigning. The sectarianism, we can't feed into it anymore.
But that won them the election in a way.
You think so?
Well, yes, I think when this is strange, but when they were properly Labour, now I feel like they're so misguided. Every march that I go on to report for, I mean, I was at a pro-Palestine march, and they hate Starmer. I mean, there were some very graphic depictions of Starmer.
On the Palestinian march.
On the Palestinian marches. Yeah, they hate him. And that's what made me think, ooh, okay, that's a bit, that he's completely lost both sides now.
It's because it was Winston Churchill said, you appease someone who feeds the crocodile until they're going to get eaten last. Or
right,
like that. So Labour have played that game, and now they're getting eaten up by that. And so Zach Polanski will eventually face that in the future. Zach, if you're listening, I'm a friend, promise. You know, and I'm just telling you, this is going to fall apart. This is not a marriage that's going to last you to the end of your days and the end of the Green Party days. It's going to fall apart sometime because the ideologies simply do not match.
Well, I'll tell you what, Zach would probably be very into having all the people who come here just straight onto benefits so that they can be hugged by our system that we pay for. What do you think about it? 0344 499 1000. Zach Polanski for PM. 500 foreign claimants every single day on benefits in this country. Foreigners, people who may have not worked a day to actually receive these benefits. Are we being treated like the world's food bank? It feels like we kind of are. I mean, benefits have never even crossed my mind. In fact, on my visa it says no public funds. So if I lose this job, I'm pretty screwed, aren't I? Anyway, do give me a call to keep me in the job. 0344 499 1000 is the number, or shoot me a text. Talk at 87222. Do that. My producer's kind of wailing in my ear about something to do with money. We will be going to a very serious interview, though, after this break. It's something I've been anticipating for a long time. It's Andy Webb, and he's going to talk all about how the BBC has a lot of skeletons in their closet.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, in the early hours of the 31st of August in 1997, Diana, the Princess of Wales, died from injuries sustained in a car crash. She was in Paris, France. She was with Dodi El Fayed. That was Diana's partner at the time. And the driver, the Mercedes-Benz chauffeur, Henry Paul. So they were both found dead, Diana and Dodi. And Diana's bodyguard was also there, Trevor Rees-Jones. He was the only survivor of the crash, and he was very injured. That is a very, very dark day on Britain's history, but what led up to that is actually very, very interesting. Now, Martin Bashir is probably someone that you've been hearing about in the news quite a lot, because he, in my opinion, was one of the first big pillars to fall with the BBC and its sort of now total spiral into oblivion. I want to get on the show the man who has written the book that I've been absolutely devouring today. It's just come out today. It's Diana Rama. It's one of the best things I've read. Andy Webb, welcome.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Thank
Glad
you so
you're
much.
enjoying the book.
I'm absolutely loving it, and I would encourage every one of our listeners who I know they are all total Anglophiles, they love the royals as well, to buy this, because it is a gripping read. And it's not just about the royal family, it's a lot about the BBC and, you know, the institutional cover-up that kind of happened after the Bashir interview. So let's go there. There are a couple of central figures. There's obviously Diana. There's Diana's brother, Charles Spencer. There's Martin Bashir. And then there's also her driver and her private secretary. These are kind of the central figures of this book, I would say. What exactly happened? I mean, everyone wanted that interview. Oprah wanted it. There were lots of more formidable journalists that wanted it at the time. But Martin Bashir, little Martin Bashir, got the interview. What was the lead up to that big interview that is probably one of the most famous in the world?
Absolutely. I mean, as you say, exactly 30 years ago to this day, which explains, you know, the publication of the book today. Yeah, I mean, how did Martin Bashir get it? Someone possibly unkindly said to me that at the time he got the interview, Martin Bashir was not a household name, even in his own household. You know, people who'd been chasing Diana, as you say, Oprah, everybody else. So how did Martin Bashir get her to, you know, say what she said? Well, he was, I think, incredibly skillful in a very dark way. He managed to get, first of all, past her brother, Charles Spencer, by showing Charles Spencer what turned out to be fake documents that purported to show Martin Bashir had great sources, you know, et cetera, et cetera. He managed to get hold of these bank statements that, you know, were proving that some of the staff were taking bungs from the tabloids. This was meant to impress Charles Spencer, and to an extent it did. And so Bashir managed to get, if you like, into the inner sanctum in Kensington Palace. Once he was there, the things he was telling Diana sound utterly bizarre, including the fact that, for instance, all completely fictitious, but Prince Charles, now King Charles, Prince Charles was planning to have Diana murdered. Prince Charles was planning to have Camilla, who's now, of course, the Queen, planning to have her murdered in order to, once they're both murdered, in order to marry the nanny.
Tiggy Legbook, right?
Tiggy Legbook, exactly. So these were just some of the stories that Bashir was able to get Diana to believe. And you may say to yourself, gosh, I mean, that is incredible. Why would anybody believe that sort of stuff? Put yourself inside Diana's head at that particular moment in history. And in fact, her phone has already been tapped. We know that. Her phone had been tapped. The conversations had been broadcast publicly. Diana was very, very concerned that a person who'd recently been one of her bodyguards, who she'd had a bit of an affection for, had died in a motorbike accident, and Diana wondered whether that was innocent or not. So Diana was extremely, in a somewhat vulnerable state. But what Bashir was very, very clever at was making Diana particularly frightened about this notion that her husband, Prince Charles, might start a new relationship with the nanny, in which case the two boys then, William and Harry, would be taken away and taken by the nanny. And this was what made Diana so kind of terrified that she was prepared to listen to Martin Bashir and indeed agreed to do the Panorama interview to show Buckingham Palace that she was not going to be pushed around.
You know, Andy, before I read the book, I always thought of Diana as this paranoid type, who was sort of mentally unstable towards her death. But what is actually revealed within these pages is that she was basically psychologically abused by the BBC. It really does seem like she was perfectly normal, and you're right, she had some reason to feel a little bit unsure of things. I mean, she was the most photographed woman on the planet at the time, and kind of still remains that to be. But, I do think that the BBC is the one who should be culpable for how she was feeling and how she felt after. I mean, when you go through, obviously, she let go of her driver and her private secretary, who she had very close relationships with, because, they were told that they were part of the dark forces. As you said, she was told that the Queen was going to abdicate 6 months after the interview. These are all lies spun by the BBC. Her husband was planning to leave her. The Camilla murder, of course. The nanny, Tiggy, had, apparently had an abortion, according to these forged documents. And you're right. I think the best lies always have a couple of truths intertwined with them. And that's what Martin Bashir so expertly did in order to try and get this interview. So I think Diana was in a really bad place, but I agree with you. I don't think we should discount the fact that the BBC had a lot to do with this.
I agree. I mean, the word, we've heard, you often hear it with regard to Diana, paranoid. And I always think that's kind of unfair. I mean, that's like a psychiatric diagnosis, and it seems a bit unfair apart from anything else. If I put it this way, if let's say now if David Attenborough were to come up to you and whisper in your ear that he's heard and he's got evidence that somebody is, they've taken out a contract on you and you're going to be killed, and this is David Attenborough telling you that, then you wouldn't have to be paranoid to maybe take it seriously and take action. I think it's kind of useful. 30 years ago, the interview took place, but let's put this in a modern frame with modern language. And what you've got is a 34-year-old single mum, which is what Diana was at the time, who is targeted by a predatory male who is Martin Bashir, and then she is, if you like, she's groomed, she's gaslighted, she's forced almost coercively controlled into this position where she will do what he requires her to do. And that is really, I think, the way to explain this Panorama interview. And interestingly, remember that her son, Prince William, has described it. And I think we all of us who can remember maybe 5 years ago, Prince William came on television and said his piece. He used the word, he said, it is not legitimate. The interview was not legitimate. And that's an interesting word. And you say, well, what did he really mean by that? And what he really meant by that was that this is not an interview. It's not an interview. It's a kind of double act. It's a performance. It was something that Martin Bashir had conceived and unfortunately, was successful in persuading Diana to go along with. And it's a whole can of worms. And of course, the issue arises. That's Martin Bashir. That's what Martin Bashir did, which was clearly deceitful, terrible, very, very bad. You then say to yourself, was there a way of stopping this kind of runaway train that he had set in motion after the interview has gone out? And I firmly believe that yes, there was. For me, always the key moment was when his bosses back at the BBC realized that their reporter, he'd commissioned these forged bank statements. He presented them to a member of the public, Charles Spencer.
Yes.
Then, when questioned back at the BBC, Martin Bashir had lied about what he'd done. So that's what BBC bosses knew. They knew that their guy had commissioned forgeries, he'd used them, and he'd lied about it.
And they knew very early on, didn't they, Andy? They really, as early on as 1996, which was the year that the interview took place.
Well, no, we're talking sort of 3, 4, 5 months after the interviews ended in 95. This is sort of March 96.
Yeah.
The point is that I'm perfectly prepared to believe that the BBC bosses did not know the huge gamut of crazy claims, the death plots and all the rest of it. But what they did know was that there'd been forgeries, they'd been used, there'd been lies. And I think at that point you have, if nothing else, a duty of care to go to the people who have been hoaxed and deceived in this way, and you explain to them. You say, look, I'm terribly sorry. We're the BBC. It may sound strange, but somebody working for us has done this. No, they did not do that. And the point that Diana's family to this day find heartbreaking is not just the possibility, but the likelihood that her life would not have followed the tragic course that it did follow had she been briefed on what had been done to her, because it's a result of that interview that she got rid, and you alluded to this earlier, she got rid of the people around her who she had previously trusted. Her private secretary, Patrick Jefferson, a chauffeur, people like that. So her life was on a completely different plane after the interview than it was before. And you say to yourself, well, how thick is that line that takes you from Panorama to Paris, to the tragic crash in Paris? And that line is very thick and very easily defined.
Well, what you portray so poignantly in this book, and you alluded to it a little bit before, is that it is really just about humans, the humans involved. We always think of Princess Diana in this sort of very glossy, sheeny way, but at the end of the day, it's the two sons that got left without a mother because of some of the decisions that were made by the BBC, you could say, allegedly. We're going to get a little bit more into that after this break with Andy.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I'm joined by the great Andy Webb, who wrote this fantastic book. You got to get your hands on it. It's Diana Rama. It is an unmissable read, genuinely, especially over the holiday season. I know that, well, I bought an extra copy for my mum today, actually, because I know that she's going to be absolutely enthralled by it. Andy's still with us. My goodness, I was just sort of, those revelations, I was almost taking them in during the break, because it's some mad stuff. And what you said about David Attenborough rings so true, because it's about the trust that was had in the BBC at the time that was completely abused by Martin Bashir. You know, I wouldn't question anything that David Attenborough told me, because he's an authoritative figure and he's never gotten anything wrong. And that's what the BBC was before this interview. And I wish I had all night to talk to you about Lord Dyson and all the other people included, obviously, within the book, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately. What I want to talk about is obviously Matt Weissler, who was sort of almost, would you call him the whistleblower in this situation?
Yeah, that's a fair description. Yeah.
So he sort of put two and two together when he was curled up on the couch with his girlfriend watching the interview, and I'm sure he was horrified to almost think, this is what I've done. Now, he tried to send not the exact forged documents, but documents that he had forged in preparation for Bashir. He tried to send that to a producer at the BBC. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. It is a long, complicated story of 30 years.
I do apologise. It's difficult to condense.
Not at all. I just want to try and summarise it. So, of course, Matt Weissler, really, really nice guy, very, very nice guy, and very helpful, putting the book together. Matt had created these forgeries that the master copy, if you like, had been, of course, sent to Martin Bashir, who needed the forgeries to use them. When you're printing out stuff, sometimes the print isn't quite so good. So Matt had another copy back still in his flat. Now, these he faxed to a colleague at the BBC, because he said, look, I think something really, really strange has happened here. What has Martin actually done with these forgeries? So he faxed the copy that he kept, the ones where the printing wasn't quite so great, faxed them to his colleague. And it's from there that the story began to bubble up, if you like, within the BBC. Managers began to hear what had happened, and it's what I find. Shameful. Yes. is the degree to which BBC managers at that point didn't pursue it as they should have done. Because, as I say, where this leads is. Do
you think they basically covered it up? Would you say?
Well, they did, but where it leads is it should have led to Diana. It should have led straight to Diana at that point. They should have said, something terrible's happened. Our reporter has used forgeries. He's done these, and they should have briefed Diana on that. And as I say again, that is the critical point in this for me. Correct. The fact that Bashir had got his interview. In the book, I say, well, let's say that this had been allowed to come out. Let's say that Diana had been briefed on what had gone down.
Because she was still alive when they knew in the timeline.
Absolutely. Her life,
which is the most damning point, as you say.
It's certainly the most heartbreaking point, because her life at that point had about 18, she was dead in 18 months' time. Had they briefed her, what might have happened? I think this would have happened. And this, her private secretary agrees with this, that Diana probably would have bounced back from this very, very, very quickly. Very quickly, because what's the situation? Well, she has been taken in by this organisation which we're all brought up to trust, the BBC. So she would have actually gained a huge degree of support, I think.
Yes.
Yes, it's embarrassing to have to say, oh my God, what did I do? Why, oh my God, I wish I'd never gone on television and said this. But of course, you were thoroughly conned, you were hoaxed, all that sort of stuff. So she would have bounced back from it very, very quickly. And her life, I think, very plausibly, would have followed a different course from the tragic course on which it was set at that point.
So what you're saying is if the BBC hadn't been so enthralled in all the awards and all the accolades that they were getting off the back of that Panorama interview, and they hadn't covered up what some of them knew at the time, of course they didn't know the full extent to it, but we could, we could still have Diana with us today, potentially.
I think that's perfectly credible, but of course, remember, it's not just the awards and indeed the reputation of the BBC that they were concerned about. They're concerned about their jobs.
Yeah.
They're concerned about their jobs, because had Martin Bashir been outed at that point, well, okay, he's clearly gone, but they're gone as well. I mean, the head of news, indeed the director general of the BBC, I'm very confident they'd have lasted, an afternoon.
Well, he eventually then did need to go after many years, when it did get kind of revealed. So no, you're right. I think it's damning to know that that is the timeline, and to have that revealed within this book is just sort of, it does make me think, because obviously she didn't have her normal people with her after that. She did become quite confused within the world. I don't think that a drunk man would have been driving her had she had her private security and private protection at the time, which she dismissed because, she'd seen that maybe a lot of those people were with the dark forces, as you say. So I think there's a lot of unanswered, a lot of questions are answered in there, but there were a lot of unanswered questions at the time for Diana.
Yeah, I think you're quite right. And it's, as I say, there can be no certainty in a case like this. But put yourself in the position of Prince William, her son now. He's 43 years old. He's 7 years older than Diana was at the time that she died. So, and William's eldest boy, he's 12. William himself was 13 when the interview went out. So I think I think the position that William is in is this, that he has said, I want questions that I have, legitimate questions that I have, to be answered. I want to be convinced that the BBC is not to this day hiding things. And you'll have seen from reading the book that in the course of my research, I became aware that the BBC archives have been weeded. The incriminatory documents have been removed. Now, in that instance, one's going to say, well, is it possible that there are still important documents there that have not been revealed yet, which could tell us more about what happened 30 years ago? Or indeed, were there further documents that have been completely removed and destroyed? I was able to identify 4 documents that had been removed, but only because copies of these documents turned up elsewhere. So maybe it's more than 4. And it's these sorts of questions that, for a journalist to be asking these questions is one thing. For a member of Diana's family to be wondering about these sorts of issues is entirely another thing. You don't have to be a prince to feel these human, personal, terribly, heavy questions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think he was doubly affected by that interview because of, it's a very sensitive time when you're a teenage boy, and the things that Bashir got his mother to say in that interview. I mean, we know that there are rumours of an even potential physical fight that happened after he got back from school because he was so upset with what had happened there. So it's sort of a double whammy, so to speak, where he's been hit by that in his teenage years, and then, as you said, in his 40s and in his 30s, to find out the truth behind all that is equally as damning. And, it's quite crazy. You think about the BBC and all their cover-ups. Bashir returned to the BBC. He was actually appointed as the BBC's religious affairs correspondent in 2016 before he had a string of health issues. So it's like they don't learn from any of their mistakes.
Well, that's right. I mean, there are a lot of things in this story in the book that you say you wouldn't make it up. And as you say, they invite Martin Bashir, who again, at this point on his, presumably his employment records, it says, serial liar. Yeah. Who do we invite back to be? It wasn't just religious correspondent. He had a job as editor of religion. So he's kind of in charge of religious output for the BBC. the serial liar. Well, okay, that's an unusual qualification for that sort of job. I think the thing that people say, come on, it happened 30 years ago, it's all done, let's move on. No, the point is that today, this story is very, very much alive because the questions have not been answered. And as I say, it's members of Diana's family who want those questions to be answered. And I think that the BBC, I genuinely, that their attack line, as it were, the press office attack line is nothing to see here. Look, come on.
Well, that's the classic, isn't it? Even just with the recent BBC scandal of Trump suing them for $1 billion because they have just been constantly slapped on the wrist for issues in the past. They haven't actually had sort of money placed in their face and said, this is what actually has to happen when you make these mistakes and when you cover things up like this. So, no, you're right. At the heart of this is a family that's been destroyed by some of the decisions by the BBC and a lack of accountability. I mean, Andy, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really would encourage everyone to get Diana Rama. It is one of the best things I've read, and you can see that Andy is one of the most brilliant authors and journalists out there. So do buy that for your loved ones this Christmas, and buy it for yourself because it's just a great read. There you go. Well, after the break, back on the BBC. They've actually been doing more terrible things, but this time to our children. Can it get worse? That after this break.
My dad working all hours, even though he's old. Bringing home pittance is not how it should be, yet all is good for those overseas. To come in and basically take everything from me, living it up, housed, warm and rich, while we struggle, you silly twit. So thank you for nothing, you silly old fool. Step down now, let someone else rule.
Across the UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Remember when children's shows were just sort of fun times and giggles and, you know, you just have fun with them? Well, that's not like that anymore. It's really not. You need to be really careful as to what your kids are watching. Someone who cares a lot about this is Shelley Charlesworth. She's a researcher at Transgender Trend and a former BBC journalist. Shelley, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to jump right into it. What's going on? What are you working towards? And what have we identified is the issue here with BBC children's programming?
Right. Well, Transgender Trend likes to make that link between what's happening in the medical world, the medicalisation of children with gender-related distress, and where they get these ideas from. So that's why we've always been concerned about what goes with the BBC's output. In fact, we've been writing to them since 2015, and from 2020 we were writing quite serious letters about impartiality and the lack of evidence for the programs that they were putting out that indicated that children could change sex or maybe born in the wrong body, that sort of thing. And we got absolutely nowhere. We couldn't get a meeting, our letters weren't answered. It's been a real uphill struggle. So the recent dossier, the recent memo has really helped us in that it's brought the issue to the fore. And like other groups, we've all got the receipts for how the BBC didn't listen to us. Most importantly, I'd say we've wrote to the head of safeguarding about some of the programs which we feel actually put children at risk because of the ideas that they promote. And we haven't heard back from her at all. No response to our emails.
I mean, there's been a spate of kind of terrible, terrible things. I mean, some of them mentioned in the article, an episode of Radio 5 School Runnings, which described children as small adults trapped in bodies. You know, we've obviously had sort of an encouragement just in the general media, but this insidious play at getting kids while they're young hooked onto this ideology, which I think the BBC really has been complicit in pushing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, you're right. You started off by saying people trust the BBC. The internet seems like Wild West, so you put your children in front of the television, and you trust them to make programmes that are not going to be biased and not going to be putting forward storylines that actually are full of bias. I think that's one of the things we were most shocked at, that Waterloo Road and Casualty have had a lot of storylines about transgender, and they've all been positive. It's great if you're trans. You know, a boy can become a girl can become a boy. In Casualty, quite recently, a long-running character who's been non-binary is celebrated when she goes to have a double mastectomy.
It's sick, honestly. It's sick, Shelley.
Yeah, I know. And the problem is these programs are still there on the iPlayer. Even if they stopped making programs like this tomorrow, they're there on the iPlayer for anyone to access. And we'd like to see them taken down. And we'd also like to see better storylines introduced into entertainment.
Children are so impressionable. You're right. You do need better storylines. I haven't got too much time, but I know you've worked at the BBC. What was your time like there, Shelley? Because I can only think that with your ideology, you might have stuck out like a sore thumb.
Well, I left before it got stonewalled, if you like, before Stonewall became involved, and the T and the Q part of the acronym LGBTQ became dominant, and the staff network became so powerful. So but since then I have obviously kept in contact with people, and I know what's going on. I know how staff networks have driven a lot of what has been going on at the BBC.
Well, that was one of the findings in the dossier about a sort of cabal of transgender-loving staff members that wanted to push this ideology and wanted to push anyone down that didn't want to.
Absolutely, they do. And, you know, the receipts are there. I've seen the messages. I've seen the messages to friends of mine. You know, you can't talk about this. You misgendered somebody. That sort of thing. Yeah, yes, it is shocking.
Shelley, I could talk to you all night. I could talk to you all night. I've got to go to the news, but do come on the show again because I want to get into more about that. I think there's a lot to get into and there's a lot we still don't know. That's Shelley. She is part of the research at Transgender Trend, and she's a former BBC journalist. She's been in the belly of the beast. What a woman, honestly. She's standing up for women's rights. There's not many like her out there. After the break, another woman who cares about your rights.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, if you're not one of the 50 to 100 million people that have viewed Tish Hyman's video, then you're the one missing out because she went viral for simply explaining that she deserves basic human rights, something that just doesn't exist apparently in the Western world these days, especially for women. Women are the ones who always get put on the back foot of this sort of ideology. And you know what? I said this at the start and I'll say it again. America is always 4 to 5 years ahead of us with everything. And this is why this story resonates so well over here, because this could be what would go on in UK gyms if we're not careful. Now, we've had the Supreme Court ruling. We've sort of acknowledged that a woman is a female without a penis. But apparently, in some areas, and in Gold's Gym in LA, that's not the case. Well, let's talk to the legend herself. It's Tish Hyman. She's the Gold's Gym victim. She's also a singer. She's got an amazing career. Tish, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm a bit starstruck at the moment because you've gone famous for actually protecting women. Who would have thought? I mean, under that video that was posted on TikTok, but then subsequently on X and everything else, what I was happy to see was a string of positive comments of people supporting you and saying, this is not on. Let's just quickly take a look at the video of what you were dealing with in Gold's Gym. Now, that is clearly not a woman. Sorry, I'm actually not even going to apologize. That's a male in a crop top, okay? Anyone who's listening, I see a male who clearly loves a bench press, no breasts, no long hair, which is fine. You don't need long hair to be a woman, but this man is exemplifying nothing of femininity. Absolutely nothing. I mean, there are some transgender people that do like to get on the old hormone replacement therapy. This is not one of them. If I saw that in my changing room, I would scream and run out. I would be freaked out because that's a man who clearly looks like he's got all his capabilities intact. Tish, what was your experience?
Complete shock. I mean, you know, you're going into a women's locker room, and I've worked out at that gym for years, so I wasn't expecting to come into this situation and to be met with what I was met with, which was, you know, disregard and disrespect as I stood there naked. So I was just confused and in shock and outraged and just trying to figure out what was going on, really.
And Tish, this didn't just happen once. This happened on 8 separate occasions over a month, right?
Yeah, so the first 2 weeks it happened 4 times, and I came in contact with 3 different men in the women's locker room. And two of the times was Alexis Black.
Which is that person.
Which is that guy, that man. And then there were 2 others. One that was an African-American male, kind of looked more along the female side, but you know, we're instinctually animals. We know when we're looking at the opposite sex. So, you know, and this man was also very...
Were they clothed or were they?
Clothed.
Okay.
They were clothed. The male that could pass, he went to the bathroom, went to the locker and got his bag out the locker, and then, you know, just proceeded to sit down. And then I was getting ready to get undressed. So when I gave him that energy, he got up, but his energy said that, like, oh, whatever, this BI, you know, like just very annoyed and pissed off. And the thing is that there's an all gender restroom on the first floor in that gym and with the lockers outside. So he's in the room just to prove a point.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to use the restroom.
No, exactly. I think that there is a sort of sick, I don't want to get so into it, but I think there's sometimes a bit of a sick motive, especially when I see someone like that, who is very clearly a man who only just wants to be in the female locker rooms. I wonder why. I mean, he's genuinely, that guy's cosplaying a woman. He's just thinking, oh, I'll put a crop top on and apparently I'm a woman. And that's very, very insulting.
Yes, and you know, let me make this plain. Women deserve boundaries, period. We deserve safety, privacy, and respect. And I'm not going to sit quietly while those rights are rewritten or dismissed. It's just like they're using civil rights as a mask, and black blood was not spilled for this. Black blood was spilled for civil rights, not to be used as a mockery or a shield for policies that erase women's voices. Our mothers and grandmothers marched so we could speak, not to be silent. So I will not be silent, and I don't think any woman should be.
Amen to that. Amen. Because, my goodness, it seems like women's rights are just sort of some afterthought at the moment. I think in the Western world, we've completely forgotten what we are about. I mean, you had your gym membership revoked. Is that right? From Gold's?
Yes, absolutely.
So you had your membership taken?
Yes, EOS Gym canceled my membership. Gold's started the whole I was making reports to Gold's. They did nothing, and then they sold EOS in between all of this. And then I made 2 reports with EOS, and then they said they canceled my membership. So it's Gold and EOS that both were negligent in the situation.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible, Tish. And look, I mean, you're an openly lesbian artist, you know, you don't exactly want a male near you, I'm sure for many reasons, just like a lot of straight women obviously don't want it, don't want any of that near them in their changing room when they're at their most vulnerable. But it does seem to me like he had this male hatred for you. I mean, he obviously we're on television and radio, so we can't swear, but he was quite aggressive. Could you talk us through what he said when you told him to back off?
Well, basically, I said to him, you have to leave the room. I don't know how many times I got to see this. There are girls in here naked. And he said to me verbatim, straight women like to see D-word in the locker room. So if anything, they're looking at me more than you in here. And I said, what? It was ridiculous and it was disgusting. And I honestly think that my interactions with him happened so many times that I feel like he was always in there, just hanging out. I don't know who he was stalking, but I think I saved someone's life because when I look at him and how unhinged he is and the things that he's done in the past, I'm like, God wanted me to say something. This is not something that is in character for me, being the type of person who's loud and screaming in a place. Like, that gym has never seen me out of character. They see me working out in there. They know I'm a woman that's just doing great things. So that was just an experience that I feel like was out of body. It was God. And I'm glad that it happened because it's bringing it to people's attention. What is happening throughout the world and in America, in every state, there's no protection for women in the restroom, in their private spaces. And people need to know that.
I laugh because if I wasn't laughing, I would genuinely cry. I mean, it seems like we're at a wit's end over here. I've had on my show nurses who said that they don't want to share a changing room with a male nurse who now, because there's been a tribunal and a court case, we can actually see that that male nurse was very much a male nurse. It wasn't a transgender female. Again, he was parading around in his holy underwear in one of our hospitals, and the nurses were forced to change in basically a broom closet, while Rose, however this guy identified, got the whole changing room to himself. So you're right. I think if you don't assert yourself like you did, I mean, it's crazy how much you had to kick and scream to even just get your basic rights, which is a changing room for a female. More and more of this will go on. Now, you live in LA, which is really, in my opinion, the epicenter of wokeness. Is there more crazy stuff that goes on that we should be aware of? Because I feel like it comes to Britain a couple years afterwards.
Well, I'll say this. LA is a very progressive city, but it's not full of crazy people without morals that are just freaking off over here. That's not what's happening. And the majority of people in LA that have seen this story and have seen what's going on and are realizing what's going on are in shock and against it as well. I think what's happening is it's been silenced. So now that thank you so much for putting me on this platform. Let me say this to all the women of America, all the women of the world. Stop calling them trans women. They're not women. They are men. We need to take away the civil rights from them and give them the same rights as every other man. They're just men, and some men wear dresses, and that's okay. They're not in any danger. There's nothing to see here, and it needs to be stopped. The sooner we stop programming ourselves to call them women when they're nothing to do with women, the sooner we can see them for who they are. Men in dresses. We don't care what their sexual orientation is. It doesn't matter. We don't care if they're crazy, if they're not. It doesn't matter. They're men, and that is it. They don't need any extra human rights. They don't need any reason to be tied into our reproductive rights or anything. They're just men. They're men and they're women. There's no trans nothing. There's men, there's women. Some men wear dresses, some women wear beards, and it's all good.
You're so right, Tish, when you talk about those extra rights. It does seem like by the way, I'm perfectly happy for anyone to live their life however they want to live it. I genuinely don't have an issue with that. But don't go shoving your ideology down my throat. That's what I've got an issue with. And you're right, they do believe that they need special privileges just because of how they identify. They want a gold star and they want to be treated better than everyone else and make everyone else around them scared while they go and put their lipstick and their crop top on and pretend to be a female. And you're right, we can't put up with this. Tish, you're a legend. You're a strong woman. The world is very lucky to have you. I want you to run for some sort of political position because I just think that we need more people like you. What's next? First of all, have you had your gym membership reinstated? I want to know that. But also, what's next in your life? I mean, you're a very successful singer as well.
Well, I did not get my gym membership reinstated. I haven't heard back from EOS or Golds. They just told me to refrain from using the gym and they would not give me my termination agreement or anything. Oh, excuse me. To say that the membership was done. So I don't know what's going on with that. In regards to...
So the membership is not reinstated?
No, it's not. And, now my first main priority was raising awareness to this issue, not pursuing legal action and going for all this other stuff. I'm really, really focused on raising awareness to this issue and some sort of change being made to some of these bills, like, quickly. So that's why I really just care about raising awareness. In regard to my future, like I've been really just trying to get the education down. Not I think that politics is like a gang now. It's like the Bloods and the Crips, which is the red and the blue. And I think everybody's thinking with a gang mentality. So I don't want to come into this setting with the gang mentality. I'm a baby in this. I'm fresh. And that's the best thing about me, because I don't have any premeditated reasons to push anywhere or any agenda. I'm independent. I was Democrat. I voted for Kamala. But, you know, I voted just blindly. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying it was a good or bad thing for her to win or lose, but I voted blindly. And now my life mission is to encourage people to use their individual minds. Stop thinking like gangs. Vote for legislation, not the legislator, because there are things on the blue side and the red side that are kind of worrying me. So I think I'm really trying to encourage people of the world to pay attention to the politics in their states. Stop focusing just on the president. Get into your senates and governors, and just find out who you're voting in and what they stand for, and vote for policies. And I hope to grow in this space and help, you know, women get safety and just do everything I can to make the world a better place. This thing really woke me up to something that was happening and added to my life's purpose. I'm still a musician, I'm still a singer, and I'm still gonna put out music. I love music. It's my love, and if you go back and listen, you know, I've always talked about life. My music has always had purpose and meaning, but this just gave me more purpose and more meaning.
Tish, I think you've done a world of good for women. I think that video specifically on TikTok brought to the attention what a lot of women and girls across the world are actually dealing with because of this ideology that's crept into their changing rooms. Look, if it doesn't work out for you in America, I think you've got quite the future over here in Britain, because I'm getting a lot of text messages. I'm getting Debbie says, "Amen, Tish, you go, girl." Angie says, "Well done, Tish. Thank you for standing up for women and girls everywhere. Great respect to you and thank you." And Joanna says, "Hi, Samara. Men hanging out in women's changing rooms that sit there and ogle freely without charge. They do it quite legally. When I was young, a man spying on women would be called peeping toms. They would get charged and fined, and some even went to prison. Thank you, Tish, for standing up for women's rights." Yes, Joanna makes a great point. Tish Hyman, what a woman. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And keep fighting the good fight for us.
I won't stop. And my next thing is women's prisons. There are men being housed in women's prisons throughout America. It's a crazy problem.
It's happening here too. It's happening here too.
It's gotta stop. It's crazy. Girls, we gotta be loud. We gotta fight. Now is the time. These are men. They're not girly girls. The men don't know what's going on. Get your husbands, get your brothers, get your uncles, everybody who got a daughter. Guys, I'm telling you, this is a problem for you too. If men keep going about this, women are gonna be annoyed with y'all, and y'all not gonna be able to get any dates. Focus, people. We got to come together, unite in truth. They're men and women. That's it. As we can just get into truth, get into reality, people.
Tish, thank you. Look, Tish is fighting the good fight over there. She knows what's up. Myron, you're a man, last time I checked. What do you think about that?
I think it was quite interesting the way she said that guy came in and he was just kind of like outraged and like, you know, he's on edge, and also he's deeply insecure, it seems like, you know, when he's been asked to leave. And what he's trying to do, I think, that specific guy is trying to prove to himself that he's a woman, because I think he doesn't actually believe it. I think he's gone to a women's changing room.
You know what the issue really is that people like him undermine legitimate trans people.
Yeah.
So there are people who are actually not born in the right body.
Yeah.
And they truly feel that they need to identify as a different gender.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything good for the movement because he puts a crop top on and says that that's what being a woman is. There are people who have had their whole lives destroyed because they genuinely don't feel comfortable in their own body. And I just want to say to them, you know, we support you. Do whatever you want in life. I've got no issue with you doing what you need to do. The issue I have is men like that in Gold's Gym undermine who you want to be and the life that you want to live. That's my issue.
I think it comes down to humility, because I think if you suffer like from gender dysphoria, you feel like you're in the wrong body, there is a sense of humility. You feel like, you know what? I'm just trying to live my life. I'm just trying to be happy. I'm just trying to find some sense of purpose and my identity, and I'm struggling with it, and so on. And that's what a lot of trans people go through. This guy is in a different league. This guy is, when you actually say, "I am a woman," it's basically like saying, "I am like Keir Starmer saying, I'm going to be Prime Minister, lead people to the next election. You are saying it out of pure insecurity, right? You don't really believe what you're saying. You just have to shout louder to make it seem true.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it's just that the movement has kind of spun out of control. I know a lot of old school trans people that are not happy with what's happened. It's been commercialized. You know, big corporations have found, ooh, I can make a little bit of money out of this. This is the issue. It is a legitimate movement, but it's being undermined by these people.
No, look, womanhood has the very foundation. It's intrinsically linked to biology, whereas these specific kind of trans activists, or I don't know what kind of this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want
to say he's a trans activist. He's just a weirdo, I would just say.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
He thinks he can throw out the biological component of womanhood and, as you say, make it a costume. But look at I wonder, what does Xi Jinping and Putin think about the Western world when this stuff is being allowed? When we're discussing Supreme Court rulings and then Bridget Phillipson wondering about how to implement it into the NHS and councils and business and so on. I worry about that. In an international stage, we are a laughingstock.
You're right. I mean, I'm a libertarian at heart. Live your life, do whatever you want to do. I don't think the state should get involved. The state is getting too involved on many different sides of this. Live what you want to do, but don't go and sort of, you know, start making Tish feel uncomfortable. You know, that's where I draw the line. And also, as I said, he's playing a caricature, that guy. If you've seen the visuals, he really is, and it undermines everything else. Now, speaking of, and you're right, Xi Jinping and Putin, they're just laughing at us because we're obsessed with culture wars. We're not getting any boots on the ground. We're not getting anything properly done in this country. But oh well, that's what the West has come to. Speaking of the death of the West, almost a third of our country's Muslims want Sharia law implemented by 2044. Think about that and give me a call, 0344 499 1000. I'm going to talk to someone who's actually lived under Sharia law. She can tell you a little bit about how great it is after this break.
In terms of your question around taxes, there are no additional tax rises needed beyond the ones that I've set out.
Don't need to increase taxes.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
I will not increase your national insurance. I will not increase your VAT, and I will not increase your income tax.
We don't need to come back for more. We've done that now. We've wiped the slate clean.
The economic circumstances have declined, deteriorated since a year ago. We are having to look at taxes and spending.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Well, forget about British law. Let's talk about Sharia law, because apparently a third of the country's Muslims want Sharia law to be implemented by 2044. Yes, there is a new poll that has found that almost a third of British Muslims think it would be desirable to implement this Sharia law within the next 2 decades. So this survey was carried out by JL Partners, and it found that 50% of 1,000 British Muslims have a very positive view of Hamas, and 14% of them said that they have a quite positive view of Hamas. Well, that's a little bit scary, isn't it? Lordy, I mean, my producer yesterday brought me a sort of fact file about Sharia law because we were talking about the rise of it in France. And within that, I saw that almost a third of our country's Muslims want Sharia law. So I was quite intrigued by this, and I thought, who better to get on to talk about it than Nuraya Khan? She's a journalist, and she's got some views on this because she's come face to face with it. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I've always been watching your appearances and sort of being baffled by what you tell me about what it's really like under Sharia law. Is that something you experienced?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, I had to flee from Sharia law myself when I was kind of dealt with the full brutality of it when it comes to a woman pursuing divorce, because within Sharia law, that right is unilaterally given to a man under strict Islamic law. And so you have to fight tooth and nail, if that, to even be granted one. And it got to the point in my personal case where it just got too dangerous because there's so many other punishments that they can use against you. First and foremost is disobedience towards your husband, and that's what they charged me with, which was essentially about to use a Sharia law to kidnap me and send me back to an abusive husband, whereby I can't leave the house without his permission. And that comes directly from a verse in the Quran itself. And that is how they treat Muslim women out there, because you have no choice to enact any other law, even if you've got a different nationality or you come from somewhere else. You have to use Sharia if you're a Muslim.
All you need to do, right, is utter divorce, divorce, divorce 3 times from the male side in order to enact a divorce under Sharia, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The male just has to pronounce that word 3 times on 3 separate occasions. And it's got to the point now in countries like the UAE and I believe Saudi Arabia as well, where a man can literally just text that to his wife and be like, don't come home.
Oh, just a cheeky WhatsApp, 3 divorces and it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Imran Khan, when he was Prime Minister of Pakistan, did that to his wife.
Oh, did he do it to Jemima? Poor Jemima.
No, he did it. He did it to another British Pakistani lady.
Jemima wouldn't put up with that.
Not at all.
But no, you're right. It's been used time and time again. And the issue with Sharia law is that because it's such an extreme version of Islam, there are things like within this study, when asked about how desirable it was for homosexuality to be outlawed, 17% said it was very desirable and 10% said it was somewhat desirable. I want to bring Myron into this because he's really studied Islam quite closely and he's got a lot of thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to ask Nuraya a question about, there is Adil Ray who came on, he's a Good Morning Britain host, and he basically said that, he championed Mamdani getting elected and sort of said it'll bring in Sharia, which he would say is social justice. So his idea of Sharia is this kind of very benign, liberal kind of social justice. Do you think this is a problem now in the West, that we don't really understand this word Sharia? And when we hear the word Sharia, our gut reaction is that we know it's this kind of 7th century draconian legal system, but it's been painted by the liberal elite media class as being this kind of very benign, cosy, kind of almost left-leaning Green Party type thing that we all want. And do you think that's a problem that's going on in the West at the moment?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's a deliberate tactic that they've all employed. For example, this social justice element to it, where they even term the word jihad as like an internal struggle and not the kind of expansionist agenda that Islam has to, be in a constant state of war with the West or any infidel nation, so to speak. But within that Sharia, which derives itself directly from the Quran, because it's divine law, essentially, you get things like the hudud punishments, which are literally amputations of hands and feet, for stealing, theft, throwing homosexuals off of the highest roofs of, you know, buildings, all these kind of things. So it is mind-boggling to me how the left even stand by and champions this. But I think on the part of so-called liberal Muslims, it is a very deliberate tactic to just allow us to kind of, you know, get used to or comfortable with the idea that this is just something part of their religion, so the religion that's quite benign.
Yeah, can I just ask you, Nora, do you class yourself as a Muslim even now?
Absolutely not, no.
Absolutely not. Do you think there is such a thing as a liberal Muslim?
I think you're in a state of perpetual cognitive dissonance if you're trying to live like that, so no.
That's a good word. You know, you're right, because a lot of the teachings are very hard line. I think there are a lot of Muslims that live very peacefully in the United Kingdom, and, you know, they don't want to impose anything onto anyone. I think my issue here with this is that we can see that with the implementation of Sharia courts within the country, we've got over 80 of them now. They're not waiting for any legislation to be passed. It seems like a lot of these very extreme sects are just going and doing it. Now, would you say that with this report that's come out, with over a third of the country's Muslims wanting Sharia law implemented, do you think it's going to be something that just happens? Or do you think we need to put some sort of legal framework around it not happening?
I think they're going to continue as they are, and obviously the kind of just the disquiet and on the part of the government makes them more and more emboldened to continue how it's going as a parallel system, if you will. So there's bigamy happening, there's forced marriages happening, there's child marriages happening, there's FGM being propagated as something good and wholesome for certain sects of the religion. And because they know that they can get away with it for so long, it's just something that they will continue to do before it gets kind of wider attention, or we clamp down on it in the way that certain other European countries have decided to.
Yeah, I think the problem is this, that when you have mass immigration, first of all, you have large numbers of people coming from non-European countries, from Muslim predominant countries, they come to Britain. Now, what you do, naturally, migrants will go to where there are other migrants of the same nature, of the same country, same religion. So then you get basically densely populated areas of the country, which are, you know, like Tower Hamlets, for example, almost exclusively Muslim in different parts. You know, parts of Bradford, 75% Pakistani and so on. And as a result of that, they then vote for their communities. And as they vote for their communities, you get MPs with a first past the post system. So therefore, you get sectarian MPs, Islamist MPs. And then that number, I mean, Nigel Farage, I think I remember he's saying that will probably, he reckons it's going to grow to around 20-25 MPs by the next general election. Could be more. We have numerous local council MPs as well. So now politics goes, Islamist politics starts entering the frontline politics. And as a result of that, inevitably, the most strongest voices, the most loudest supremacist voices, will eclipse the more liberal voices, or you have people in the middle, like the moderate Muslims, who perhaps, you know, just want to go about their lives, eat their sandwiches, earn their money, and all the rest of it, like everybody else. But because they're not hardline liberals, they will not oppose these supremacist and extremist instincts. And as, like, for example, Layla Cunningham from Reform, she's a liberal Muslim, right? I've described her as a liberal Muslim, right?
She is.
She identifies as a Muslim, but she rallies against the Islamophobia definition.
And there are actually a lot of Muslim people, especially within Britain, that really do rally against the more extreme stuff, because it's no favour to them to have these extremists that then paint everyone gets painted with the same brush. So you make a very good point. But
so if there isn't enough people like Layla Cunningham stepping forward and really speaking out against this, we will sleepwalk into more increasing Islamisation of Britain. And you asked me, should the state get involved? I think the next government needs to put in safeguards. There needs to be an Islamism bill where we identify what are the supremacist, extremist instincts, the interpretations of the Quran, the Hadith, the biographies of the Prophet, ring-fence that and really put that into legislation and criminalise it, to say that, look, we want to protect liberal Muslims, right? And to protect liberal Muslims, you have to rally against the supremacist Islamist ideology. 3/4 of our MI5 security caseload is Islamist terrorism, right?
Yeah, it's exactly well over 90%, or I think it's around 87% of obviously terrorist attacks have been Islamic. So it's a big problem for sure for us to tackle over here in Britain. There is a real chasm and a lack of community cohesion with some of these communities that do totally fence themselves off a little bit more. And you know what? I mean, I don't want to say, oh, let's all hold hands and kumbaya, but I do wish that British values were the centre of all this, not, oh, let's embrace this, let's embrace that. Would you agree with that, Nuraya?
Yeah, absolutely. But you have to remember one really important factor here is that Islam has this element of supremacy built into it. So when you're comparing divine law to man-made law, which in their eyes, that is British law, Sharia wins every single time, hands down. So if you ask somebody on a personal level as well, if they are a devout practicing Muslim, which law do they believe is more just and more equitable and that they would, sooner follow, it would usually be Sharia if they had it their way, all things being equal. And then as the enclaves we see, like where more and more Muslim communities do gather and mass migration takes form, a lot of the women that come over, for example, have no idea that British law is actually more favorable to them, and they just get roped into going to their local mosque or turning to their local imam, or their local Muslim MP directs them to those ways, and so they struggle to get divorces, they don't get custody of their children, whereas British law can enshrine those things for them very easily. And so you've got this complete divide because there's just a complete lack of ignorance as well.
It's such a good point, and I actually read a recent study, or an article actually, about in Vienna, there was one case that happened where they actually acknowledged the Sharia law. And they acknowledged it within their system, and that's what I really worry about, is that we then start bending the knee to these to these communities and say, oh, okay, if you've done that in Sharia law, then we can just kind of put it across into British law. I don't want to see that happening. I mean, Nuraya, you told some pretty horrendous stories about your time within the Sharia system. Are you okay now? I think you're thriving. I mean, I'm always seeing you on my social media. You're always fighting the good fight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I live to tell the tale, thankfully, with my freedom intact, just by the skin of my teeth. So I do spend my time now just highlighting how dangerous it can be and saying, knowing one or two things about what Sharia actually means can save your life, essentially. Even something as small as a woman using the new laws they've got in Muslim countries in the courts that you do have the right to divorce. Put that in your contract and you might save yourself from years of torment and potentially incarceration as well.
There you go. I always say it is the second generation that's always more amenable to this sort of thing, because they get very wistful about something they know nothing about. So it's always good to have your perspective on, because you've been through it. You've been in a Sharia law system and you didn't like it very much. Wow. Maybe because you're a woman, maybe because you're a sensible person. Nuraya Khan, thank you so much for joining us on the show. That's such an interesting insight, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say as well, I'm a devout Hindu, right? So Hinduism has this kind of dictum, which is basically the truth is one, but the wise speak of it in many different ways. So there's many ways of approaching. So if you say you're a Christian or a Jew or just an atheist, I still look at you as equally legitimate on your spiritual path, winding your way through life as I am. Whereas when you get to Islam and you get to Christianity as well, they believe that essentially either you're on the right path or you're on the wrong path. There is exclusivity of truth. Now, a Christian will say, look, they'll look at me perhaps, if they're a conservative Christian, they might look at me and say, look, Myron, you're probably just still, I'll pray to Christ that you find the light, right? That's what a conservative Christian might say. But an Islamist will look at me and say, you're an enemy of God. Right? It's the different tone that the supremacist.
And we're talking about extreme Islamists here. We're not talking about every Muslim person on the street, by the way.
No, but by definition, an Islamist, that's what we mean by Islamism. That's why I use that specific term, the Islamist. So a liberal or moderate Muslim wouldn't look at me in the same way. But an Islamist sees me as basically not only incorrect in my path, but an actual enemy, and actually as someone who is subordinate to the Muslim. And that's what we see in most extreme versions in ISIS and so on. And there's a verse in the Quran that says that makes the Christian and the Jew pay the jizya, the tax, and that if you're a polytheist, then essentially you should be killed. And so what happened with the Yazidis and with ISIS? They tried to make the Christians and Jews pay the tax, but the Yazidis, because they were seen as polytheists, were killed and their women taken as sex slaves. Now you have mandates in the Quran with that. Now a liberal Muslim and a moderate Muslim will look at that and say, look, that was meant for a different time. It's not relevant for now. They'll find new interpretations. All of that kind of stuff. But an Islamist will say, no, we must do what it says on the tin. We must take the literal interpretation. This is the final revelation, and we must follow it.
Look, I think the literal interpretation of any text has never led to anything good in the modern world, so I would really apply that theory to most things, and you're right. I think you know a lot about this, and it's interesting to hear sort of the comparison between different religions and how some do take it to the more extreme level and
it's all
others
about
don't.
interpretation.
It is all about interpretation. I wish we could all interpret the same way, but we don't. That's probably most of the world's issues are based on the wrong interpretation or the right interpretation or what you feel. Anyway, after the break, we are going to be talking about TikTok migrants coming on board, doing package deals, Dhaka to Dover, that and much more after these messages.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, make sure you download that Talk app. Oh my goodness, you have to. You have to do it. Go to your app store, download the Talk app. Not that hard, but maybe hard for me. I need to do that after the show, actually. Someone remind me. Ernie says, I wonder how many women of the third world Muslims who want Sharia law. Yeah, it's not very nice to women, is it, Sharia law? He also says the vast majority of people coming here on boats are Muslims who are fleeing places that practice Sharia law. Do they want it to become the same here? I would hope they wouldn't. I would hope that they were fleeing here to try and adopt British values. But, you know, time and time again, we see that sometimes that's not the case. Well, let's welcome someone who knows a lot about that. It's Tony Smith. He's the former head of the UK Border Force. Tony, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
Well, I really wanted to get your thoughts on this because TikTok, and I know you advised on these articles, is being used to lure migrants to the UK. Can you tell me a bit about that process?
Yeah, so I've spent a long time in law enforcement, borders, immigration, international organised crime, trying to tackle that. Retired now, but I mean, there was always a race really on technology to the top. That whenever new technologies emerged, then organised criminals would seek to use it, and we in law enforcement would seek to stop them using it. I think we've got to a place now, as you can tell, where platforms such as TikTok are global. They're very accessible to anybody really with access to a mobile device and the internet, and they are being used extensively by international organised criminals, including human smugglers, to drum up business essentially, and they're very easily accessible, and so it is being used, if you like, as a tool to recruit migrants, be that in their source countries or already on their way here, or even encouraging them to come to northern France, where they can help them, put them in touch with the right sort of people, to get them across the English Channel. So it is a very big problem, I think, for the border force and more generally for law enforcement agencies across the country, not just here but in other parts of the world.
Now, Tony, I think you're onto something, especially with this TikTok people smuggling ring. I got a little bit upset, to be honest, because I was thinking, Starmer hasn't smashed really any gangs that I've heard of since he's come into power. That was his whole thing that he sort of rode the waves of the election on, but he hasn't done anything for those traffickers. So I got on TikTok myself the other night, and I kind of posed as a Vietnamese migrant, and I DM'd a couple of people that it took me about 3 minutes to find. I genuinely just looked up Calais to Dover routes. Okay. I messaged them. I wish I had the screenshots. Maybe I'll get them up in a different segment. But, they gave me the package deals. It took about 5 minutes to find one of these people. Why can't the Labour government go on and do that and smash some gangs, Tony?
Yeah, so you're right. It is very easy for you to do that sort of thing if you're into that.
Yeah, not promoting anyone to do that. It's not like the lucrative 4-star hotel waiting at the end of that journey isn't going to entice some people.
Just be a little bit careful. I mean, because the Home Office aren't completely impotent in this. They have got analysts who are monitoring chatter and monitoring these websites 24/7. So when these sorts of conversations are happening, they are being intercepted at times by the government. I think the government have done some more. They've just come out. Actually, the Home Office just come out with a major recruitment for more technology on what we call OSINT. Interception capabilities, where we've got fantastic platforms now, particularly in the States, where you can actually intercept these messages. And as you know, a lot of the people that come across here, they deliberately conceal stuff from us. They throw their passports away to conceal their identity, their nationality, their age, their travel history, whereas they don't realise that quite often we can track their social media posts and get a lot of the information that we really want from them because they've been broadcasting it to the world. So I think that this race about whether we can just shut these platforms down, I think we can, but can we in law enforcement make better use of analysing these sorts of interceptions so that we can start to identify some of the things you're talking about and start to identify the smugglers? But I mean, in terms of smashing the gangs, that's really difficult because they're not operating in the UK. They're operating in France or further away from here, and you can't really use the criminal justice system to get after them. You're relying on the French or other governments, departments to work with you, and that's, in my experience, is always quite difficult. So the best you can really do is try to disrupt them, get after their money, disrupt their supply chains, rather than bring them to the UK justice system. And I think that's where the government went a little bit off key when they suggested this is what they were going to do with smashing the gangs.
You're so right, Tony, and you're right about who these smugglers are. I think a lot of people picture, a man with a couple of dinghies basically flogging off trips to Dover. That's not the case. These are really, really interwebbed international crime gangs and syndicates that operate among many different countries, and the things that are included are, drugs, arms, and then people smuggling as well. So I kind of scoff a little bit when I think of Starmer at number 10 saying, yeah, we're going to smash the gangs. Oh, you're going to bring down one of the biggest crime organizations in the world. Okay, sure. I mean, that is really what he's talking about, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right. And, it's like trying to smash the drugs cartels, isn't it?
Yeah. exactly.
And we know the history, and that's still going on. Drugs is still a massive business. Human smuggling even bigger now, lucrative, very, very lucrative. So I think it's a bit bold for anybody to say they're going to actually take these organisations down completely. These are going to continue to exist, and where you do smash one gang, there'll be another one waiting in the wings. They've got. I've dealt with them myself. They've got no regard for human life. They don't care.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care, but all they want is the money. So it's the money supply and the business model you've got to get after. So you've got to try and break that business model of those people getting across here in the first place. And if the French aren't going to do it for us, we have to do it ourselves. And that means making it very clear to people when they do get in a small boat and they get across into the UK that they're not going to be allowed to stay. They're going to be detained and deported. And that's not what is happening. They're getting into the UK, and the vast majority of them are given immigration bail. They're in the communities. It's very unlikely any of them are going to be removed. So I think that would be a better tack, really, for the government to focus on deterrence and how do we break the business model so you realise actually it's not worth you doing this because you're going to get sent straight back again. You might as well stay in France or go somewhere else rather than come here.
Well, you're right, Tony. It's like whack-a-mole. If you were to try and sort of defenestrate these gangs, they just another one would crop back up overnight. And I am an Australian, it's no secret with my accent, but our Operation Sovereign Borders was hugely successful. It actually basically curtailed all of these gangs in just 1 week because there were zero incentives for them. I mean, they genuinely knew, and it goes back to TikTok and iPhones. They could see on their phone that if they came to Australia, they wouldn't be allowed to step foot on that country and they'd never be settled there. And hey ho, there were no gangs overnight. Wow, it's like it really can be that simple. But unfortunately, there's a whole legal apparatus that we need to pull out of, such as the ECHR, for anything to happen in that regard. So, Tony, you've been fighting the good fight and continue to do so and continue to tell us how it might be done. I know it must be frustrating, though, after all these years. Hopefully, I mean, I don't have much sort of sympathy or courage in Shabana Mahmood to do something. Well, just last question. Do you think Shabana will be able to stop the boats? Will she be the one to do it for us?
No, I'm afraid. Hats off to Tony Abbott, by the way, and you guys.
Great man.
Sovereign Borders. I knew some of the guys down under who did that. I'm in touch with them, and they're right. It is, but it does require that really bold political direction that you had in Australia, and I just haven't seen that here yet. I don't know where that's going to go. You see Trump, signs of this in Trump now doing this with very bold steps to unpick that legal, mess, that Gordian knot we've got around borders. These are the sorts of leaders you need. I'm not sure that Shabuna or even the last government had that real strong, powerful political will. But that's what it's going to take. And until we see someone come, emerge and say, right, I'm going to grip this and I'm going to unpick all of these things. Let's get out of the ECHR. Let's unpick this legislation. Let's do an Operation Sovereign Borders on the English Channel. You really need someone that's got the gumption to do that. And at the moment, I just don't see it from anywhere here, I'm afraid. I hope it does emerge, but I just don't see it at the moment.
You're right, and I think it's just all about votes. I mean, we talk about Tony Abbott. He was genuinely treated as the devil incarnate when he brought in Operation Sovereign Borders. People were protesting out on the streets. They were saying all our human rights are going to get taken away. We've seen the same with Trump, where he's been completely vilified to a whole other level for actually bringing down migration to, I think, less than 3% just in his couple of days. He brought it down by 97% while he was in power. So you're right. You need a leader with the gumption and someone who actually doesn't care about being liked or disliked either way and just wants to stop the crisis, because it has reached boiling point over here in the UK, and we need someone to step in and say, hey, let's do something. Probably not going to happen, though, in the next 4 years, unfortunately. But, Tony, thank you so much for coming on the show. That's Tony Smith. He's the former head of the UK Border Force. Lucky to have him. Wish there were more people like him in the UK. But, they're few and far between these days. Myron, I mean, could Shabana stop the boats? 03444991000 if you want to call in and have your say on that.
No, absolutely not, because unless you do detain and deport, you have to do detain and deport. Anything less than that is simply not going to wash. Now, the silver lining of this disastrous, and it is disastrous situation, is that I hope this will wear down those people on the, let's say, on the liberal left of the public, wear them down to the understanding that nothing else is going to work. Shabana Mahmood's role is to do everything she can apart from leave the ECHR and repeal the Human Rights Act and detain and deport. Right? And then after she's finished her term, the public will now realise there is only one solution. Detain, deport, leave the ECHR, repeal the Human Rights Act. Let's get on with it. We just have to do it. So it will basically give the British public the stomach to do that hardline policy implementation that he was just talking about just now. But I've spoken to people at the National Crime Agency off the record. They all told me from the very beginning, we all know the Smash the Gang's not going to work. It was a pervasive kind of you know...
Well, that's a scandal, isn't it?
Yeah, no, they openly told me.
We have to break, but after, I'm going to take your calls. So do give me a call on 0344 499 1000, and we'll take them after this.
My dad working all hours, even though he's old. Bringing home pittance is not how it should be, yet all is good for those overseas. To come in and basically take everything from me, living it up, housed, warm and rich, while we struggle, you silly twit. So thank you for nothing, you silly old fool. Step down now, let someone else rule.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Gary says, so the infection spreads, ? Yes. What infection are you referring to? Is it the infected country? I don't know. Let's talk to Mark in Lincolnshire. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Samara.
Hello. What do you want to talk about?
You guys were talking about the Sharia law thing, its implementation. It's just really expanding on that, to be honest, because this is all part of a much bigger project that people don't seem to want to talk about. You know, it's a conspiracy theory, only it isn't. I mean, there was a report released only 2 or 3 days ago now, by some anti-Semitism group or other.
Campaign Against Anti-Semitism? I think that report?
Something like that.
I think I read that one too.
I'll tell you exactly who it is. If I can actually find it again. Oh, I can't see.
Myron, do you agree with Mark? Do you think that this is a concerted effort? Oh, Mark, hello.
Hello there. Yeah, it's the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism.
Oh, okay, I haven't heard of that one. There was a campaign for anti-Semitism against anti-Semitism that I read.
All right. I mean, okay. I mean, this one's based on some seized documentation from the Muslim Brotherhood. That's what this is based on. And it's regarding their 100-year plan. Okay, and we're currently at around the year 50 of a 100-year plan, apparently. And this makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
When you look at what this plan actually is, it's regarded as the Grand Jihad, okay? It's a non-violent thing. Now, what it's about is strategic entryism, or tamkeen in Arabic. And that is a gradual entrenchment across political, educational, social, economic, legal, and media domains, exploiting democratic freedoms to build parallel Islamic structures.
Myron, you've really researched a lot into this as well. What would you say about? I mean, I'm just hearing about this study for the first time here. I'm going to have to look into it, Mark. But thank you for bringing it to our attention.
This is one of the reasons why Nigel Farage has said that Muslim Brotherhood should be prescribed, and he said it during the actual conference it's
prescribed in a lot of Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's not a controversial thing.
It's not a controversial thing. It's actually we're just late to the table on it as a terrorist organisation, because there is this. Like I said, this supremacist instinct, this political ideology which is woven into a spiritual ideology, which then leads to this situation. Now, look, I don't know if it's a concerted plan, like it's a really conscious, like everyone, like I said, cigar smoking, whatever it is, shisha smoking, and everyone just coming there against organising a very...
We always forget how disorganised people really are, Mark. Whenever I hear about... Yeah.
But I think there is an organic consensus amongst some individuals, some people in the Muslim community that yes, we should gather together. We should form a block vote. You had Hamza Yusuf form this organisation, and you know he was next to a guy who basically said we should all be successful like Brother Hamza, so that we could basically rise to power and actually feed the interests of our communities. So in a way, it's a natural thing for a community to do, right? To actually, if you have unique tastes or aspirations, then it's natural that you would want to get certain people who represent you, who think like you, to feed in and bolster your cause. But this is a situation where you have, and the Islamist ideology has the potential not just to work along.
Mark, thank you for your call. More of that after these messages, and also sorry. Santa. Who would have thought that after this?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, welcome back to the final hour of the Political Asylum. Oh my gosh, it's been a very fun show tonight. I've got a phone box that is just heaving with calls. I've got one line open, so if you do want to get in, try to get that one last line. 03444991000 is the number. I want to cross over to the North Pole, it seems. I want to go speak to Santa, because it doesn't seem that Britain wants to embrace Christmas anymore. We're very happy to embrace every other national holiday or make it a national holiday, but we seem to not want to talk about Christmas. And it's weird because we are a Church of England country. I mean, Tesco has just recently been criticised for naming Christmas tree an evergreen tree. What? Let's go to the source himself. Let's go over to Santa, otherwise known as Mike Mendoza. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thank you so much, and I make no apology for the T-shirt I'm wearing today. Merry Christmas.
You know, I'm pretty hardline about this stuff. I do say December 1st, that's when we start to put the tree up and get the lights on, but I'll make an exception. I will make an exception.
Hold on. Is it a Christmas tree or an evergreen tree you're putting up?
Oh, well, it's an evergreen tree, apparently, according to Tesco. I mean, what do you make of this, Mike? Has the world gone mad?
I think Tesco's has gone mad, to be honest with you. You know, this is absolutely crazy. If you're going to walk into a shop, you're not going to say, "Oh, can I have an evergreen tree, please?" No, I go in for a Christmas tree, and I'll put all the baubles on. It's going to look absolutely fabulous when the time comes. And all those chimneys I come down, they don't look like this normally, all the chimneys I come down on Christmas Eve, the amount of lovely Christmas trees are there. Not one of them is an evergreen tree, is it?
Well, I know. It's kind of like this scrubbing of tradition and a sort of self-hatred that we have for ourselves in this country, where we say, no, even though we're in the United Kingdom, which people fly from all over the world to spend Christmas here because it's so jolly and we have amazing lights and we have fantastic displays of our festivities. No, let's call it an evergreen tree. I mean, is nothing sacred? Do you know, it genuinely pales me about what's going on here. Do you think this is a slippery slope? Apparently some of the mince pie packaging doesn't have Christmas included in it. What? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Is there a frosty cake now as opposed to a Christmas cake?
Ludicrous.
Isn't that
Frosted
wonderful?
fruit bar.
If you saw a Diwali tree or an Eid tree, I wonder if people would object.
Pardon, I didn't just quite get you there, Mike.
If it was a Diwali tree or an Eid tree, I wonder if people would object.
It's such a good point. And you wouldn't get objections. And if you did get objections, you'd get raked over the coals, so to speak, for objecting to it. You're right. I mean, I can't believe you actually put pounds into buying that woke bar. I'm not happy about that.
Exactly.
Myron, what do you think of this? Mike, we've got a Hindu in here. Maybe he can tell us about a Diwali tree.
Yeah, you know, I haven't heard of a Diwali tree, but I would say, look, this could be seen as a kind of innocent, comical story, but it's actually very serious and it's actually very sinister because it is, as you said, a kind of an eroding away of bit by bit, the chipping away of attrition at the very foundations of what Britain is, the cultural identity of this country. And at the heart of it is Britain simply an empty matrix of diversity and a collection of different cultures from all over the world, or does it have its own culture, its own inherited history, something that we should be, you know, filled with gratitude and pride and inspiration we want to pass on to the next generation, or is it something that we can just willfully just throw to one side? So this evergreen Christmas tree thing, as trivial as it sounds, and a lot of people on the left might like to make it trivialize it, but it ties into the abolishment of whiteness, colonial guilt, all of these things. Operation Raise the Colours, why we're raising so many flags. This is basically the British people who believe this is a real combat. I don't want to use the word anything more insightful than the word there is a conflict. That conflict between those who actually treasure what this country is and those who want to destroy the foundations of what made this country is, so they can build some kind of, I think, perverse multicultural dystopia.
What would you say to that, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I'm kind of like nothing more to add there. Yes.
I'll just go through my dictionary, look at some of the long words that you just used. It was amazing, actually. But it's absolutely fantastic. Do you know, last weekend I was at a garden centre, and the number of Muslim families that came in, and their children came, they sat on my lap, they were given a gift. Not once did they think to themselves, oh, you know, this is not right, we shouldn't be doing this. Why am I visiting Santa Claus or Father Christmas, which are the names that I'm given? And you know, I go to countries like Malta, for example. When I was in Malta, it was amazing. We had more adults than children that came to see me. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I spent probably almost 3 Christmases in Russia, controversial country, but they do know how to do Christmas properly. I mean, they're totally happy, and they've got a massive Muslim population too, but they're very happy to embrace their traditions over there and their Christianity. I mean, what will you be when things are scrubbed? Are you just going to be man with white beard? I mean, seriously, I mean, what's the description going to be? I tell you what, I was reading an article in the Times about you. Apparently you were sacked from being a Santa because of...
I was sacked
why were you
fat,
sacked?
yes.
Tell me.
Actually, I was on talk the day it happened, or the day after it happened. Yes, I was too fat to be Santa, and we've now got a song coming out called Too Fat to be Santa, by the way, produced by Mike Reed, and that's going to be a very good one. We're going for the download charts. We'll see how we go with that one.
I'll be listening.
But yeah, no, Lapland UK, who I'd signed up to, literally 5 days before we were due to start, said to me that the outfit I was wearing was too tight. You know, I had to split it open to get me into it.
So you got fat shamed?
I was fat shamed. Do you know something funny? There's a WhatsApp group for the Santas, made strangely enough.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
One guy came on and said, I thought body shaming was illegal. They told me I'm too thin and I've got to wear a fat suit. So I said to him, well, that's really weird because they told me I'm too fat and I've been fired. And they took me off the WhatsApp group straight after that, by the way.
What? Oh my gosh, you got barred from the WhatsApp group. It's like too fat, too thin, too hot, too cold. I mean, what do these people want? You know, with the rise of Ozempic and weight loss jabs and all that, do you think that we're going to see a rise in Ozempic Santas?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I'll tell you something not funny, but about 18 months ago, I actually did try Ozempic. I lost 4
Is that a world
stone.
exclusive, Mike?
Well, yeah, I lost 4 stone, which is quite amazing.
Oh my God! God, get me some, please. Let's go.
Then I came off it and I put it all back on again, which is why I was too fat for Santa. Yeah, not just the Times, it was covered everywhere, all over the place. It was quite crazy.
Right.
And I'm still waiting to be sued by Lapland, but I haven't heard a thing yet.
Oh my God. That's madness, honestly. I mean, it's interesting. I saw that the BBC posted this thing. We're doing a lot of BBC bashing tonight. My goodness, I feel a little bit bad. But they did post this thing that said that the Christmas... Well, they didn't say Christmas. They said the festive activities are going to go car-free this year. Now, when I saw that post, 2 things came to mind. 1, call it Christmas. 2, let's not act like the whole car-free thing isn't anything to do with the horrible tragedy that happened last year at a German Christmas market where there was a craven terrorist attack. In fact, Germany has had to cut their Christmas markets down by 75% because of what had happened, and basically they just can't clear the security. They can't get enough security to make sure that everyone's safe. This is really terrible. I mean, do you think that there'll be... I don't want to wish anything badly upon this Christmas season, but, you know, when the BBC starts to say car-free Christmas market, should we just tell it for what it is?
Well, I know they're putting a lot more security measures, certainly up in Germany, a lot more barriers going up around the markets. And I think other European cities are doing the same thing as well. But I can tell you, Jack Cohen, who's the founder of Tesco's, would be rolling in his grave right now if he knew what was going on. You know, he was one who actually he loved Christmas. He embellished it. Christmas to him was you know, like winning the lottery every year, because you know, it was a really big deal for him.
Yeah, of course, you're right. You're so right. I think we keep seeing go woke and go broke, and unfortunately, I hope that doesn't happen to Tesco. Hope it doesn't happen to Waitrose. But if you keep trying to scrub the things that people look forward to out, then what's the point? It doesn't feel like it's Christmas. It just seems like it's a never-ending loop of days. You know what I mean? I mean, I look forward to getting my mince pies, but if they're just called pies, then, you know, or Christmas mince pies, if they're just called mince pies, then what's the point? You know, you're right. I think it scrubs it all. Myra,
you can even go to Dubai. In Dubai, they're celebrating Christmas there as well.
Oh, way more than us. It's every other country that actually likes to celebrate Christmas, and us, we are known in the UK for doing that properly. We just don't seem to be embracing it. We seem to have been captured by the woke mind virus on this one.
But another thing that I've noticed is there are some schools rolling back on the nativity plays as well.
Really?
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I mean,
that's sick.
I played one of the Three Kings when I was a kid. My children have done that as well. But and I think not Kings, but other stuff. But yeah, this is we talk about Orwellian. Yeah, it gets used a lot. But it is that creepiness when you start changing words, when you start downplaying rituals, start kind of shifting the emphasis of what celebrations are. All of this culminates in the gradual, sinister, underhand erosion of your cultural identity. And so this is why I really think that it's really good that you're flagging it up on this show. And I think we cannot be naive and think that these things are just trivial.
Yeah, totally. When we can't have the basics, then what can we have? Right, Mike?
Am I right in saying that, I know a lot of town centres now, they've taken down the word Christmas in their decorations?
Yes, absolutely.
Am I right in saying it happened in Regent Street, hasn't it, as well this year?
Yes.
They're not putting the word Christmas up.
Yeah, which is outrageous. I think if we don't bang the drum for common sense, then, you know, about these things, if you notice in your town that they're not saying Christmas, I highly recommend to go and try and write to your council and try and get something going with this, because we can't let this go on.
But Samara, you know what the solution is? We need to get back in the churches.
Yeah.
Seriously, like principles come downstream from culture, culture comes downstream from religion. Once the religious foundation is gone, culture starts to go next, and eventually the principles start to follow behind that. So it comes down to, look, we actually have to have a rejuvenation of faith.
But and we need to put our money where our mouth is. We need to start spending on Christmas trees and Christmas pies and all that, you know?
Don't buy an empty mince pie, buy a Christmas mince pie.
Christmas cake. Well, yeah, exactly. Christmas cake, not just fruit cake, which is what a lot of people refer to me as.
When do we stop being a Christian country? I always thought Great Britain, England was a Christian country.
Yeah, well, we still are. Last time I checked, we're one of the few left, actually.
Look, the free markets can decide this. So if we vote with our wallet and we don't buy evergreen trees, we only buy Christmas trees. That's how we send a message.
I want to bring in, just while we've got you here, Mike, as well, I want to bring in one of our callers, Grace. She's pretty devout in her faith. Grace, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hi, Grace. How are you feeling about this chat?
Well, Tesco is using the slogan, "That's what makes it Christmas," in their adverts this year.
Right.
So I don't think they are actually abandoning the word Christmas. I actually find that slogan more problematic than whether or not they use the word Christmas.
They are within the products, though, Grace.
I don't think it's always been the case that trees have said whether or not they're Christmas trees on them. My point is that because they are still using that word, I don't think the fact that the word isn't on the tree boxes is an indication that they're trying to avoid the word, because they are still using it. But the thing is that, as you were saying a moment ago, people should get back to church. If they want to hold on to the Christian heritage of this country, actually what matters not so much is Tesco packaging, it's whether or not people choose themselves to follow Christ. And a lot of our society's values have indeed been hugely influenced by Christianity, but as a country we've been abandoning Christianity irrespective of whether or not there are more Muslims, for example. I think that the native white population has abandoned Christianity. It's not about just whether or not other cultures are coming in. We've abandoned Jesus ourselves. And if you want to find out more about him, then what it says on a box at Tesco isn't going to change that. You can go and find out more about him for yourself. I think a lot of people mistakenly presume...
But if you don't see that box at Tesco, maybe you won't think about Christmas and Jesus and Christ.
But you might still see, you will still see Tesco adverts saying that's what makes it Christmas. So the word is still around, and I don't think you need for merchandise to tell you whether or not you can find out more about God. I think the thing is that a lot of people have ended up just presuming that Christianity is just a nice myth. I think that's what a lot of people think. And I kind of felt like that when I was growing up. And then I read much more about the scientific reasons for concluding that there must be a designer for the universe, and then the historical reasons for concluding that Jesus actually rose. And I think that most people just, like I said, they think it's a nice myth. But it's so much deeper and more exciting. And in the New Testament, you see that Jesus got kind of frustrated when people were making a lot of noise about traditions and customs. They thought, the religious people thought, you have to do these things in this way because this is how we do them. And Jesus was like, no, you're missing the real point, which is to turn to God. And I feel like if we just get really argumentative about what the box says in Tesco, we could miss the real point. And as you said a moment ago, going back to church would be a better way of looking at what is actually most interesting and exciting, and other things flow on from that. But Tesco's ultimate motivation is just to make money. So we can't rely on corporations for any of our kind of.
Well, Mike, would you agree with that? What would you say to all that? I mean, Grace has put forward a lot of points there.
Well, I'm very old, so I remember going back to the late 40s, early 50s, when Christmas was very much a religious festival, and then of course when the supermarkets, the birth of the supermarkets came up, that's when things certainly changed. Without a doubt, we had the mass production of things for people, which we didn't have before.
So maybe they're just going with the flow because they think, to not acknowledge Christmas is to sell more mince pies, which I think is a bit ludicrous, but,
It's the times we live in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I think we've lost faith, and as a result, we sleepwalked into a commercialisation of Christmas, and I think that's what's been happening. But I wanted to ask the caller, so I don't know your name, but Grace, do you believe that the Church of England is serving Christ or is serving woke?
I'm not in the C of E myself, although I went to a C of E school. I go to a Baptist church, so I'm not an expert on what's going on in the C of E. I do think sometimes that what I do see from the C of E is maybe not enough focus on Jesus himself and a bit too much focus on political issues. Jesus definitely does call us to talk about political issues, and so I do think it's very important that, as the C of E says, we need to have compassion for people who are really unfortunate, including people from elsewhere. But I think that sometimes it'd be good for them to talk more to our society about what Jesus has done for us, because I think most people in our society have kind of given up giving it any thought. Like I say, people think it's just a myth. And so the church should probably focus first and foremost on telling people that there's actually good reason for believing it's true.
Yeah.
No, great point, Grace. Honestly, you make some good points there, and I know you're a woman who's very grounded in their faith, so I appreciate you coming on and telling us that. Ernie said, I just got back from visiting my daughter in Abu Dhabi. Just like you said, Mike, she's left Britain to work in the malls over there. They have aisles full of Christmas paraphernalia. It's called Christmas. They've even got Christmas trees. They haven't got evergreen trees. And Lisa says, hi, Samara, I've just searched for a Christmas cake on Tesco and Asda's websites, and they're both bringing up variety cakes with a festive wreath or festive iced fruit cake. Both stores have many options, but don't mention Christmas in any of them. So I think you're onto something, Mike, and I appreciate that you spent years spreading the joy of Christmas. There's something very sacred about that, and I think we thank you.
Many years.
I think you've made many children's Christmases with all your joy, so I do appreciate it. I think justice for the Santas, and no fat shaming for them, please. I won't have that on my watch. That's Mike Mendoza. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike. He is of TalkSport as well. He's former TalkSport presenter, former legend. Well, he's still a legend, actually, but it's great to have him on. And best Santa I've ever seen. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really interesting discussion about, and I think she made the point that, Tesco, we shouldn't be too bothered. I disagree with her on that point, because when we start seeing the slipping of the word Christmas from key Christmas items like the Christmas tree, it is a symptom of something that's going on, and I think we need to flag it up. We need to keep that on board. But as she said, I do agree with her. We need to get back into the churches, sing those Christmas carols, start having some heart, start looking at something that's beyond the material world, something transcendent.
Material girl? I'm a material girl, so I don't think
Samara.
beyond the material world. Your calls after the break, get them in.
My dad working all hours, even though he's old. Bringing home pittance is not how it should be, yet all is good for those overseas. To come in and basically take everything from me, living it up, housed, warmed and rich, while we struggle, you silly twit. So thank you for nothing, you silly old fool. Step down now, let someone else rule.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, Lisa Ellis says Morrison's have Christmas cake, so we must buy from there. Happy Christmas. Yes, if you want to buy Christmas cake, go to Morrison's then. I guess that's what they're telling you to do. Can I endorse something? Can't I? I don't have a Morrison's nearby me, so maybe I'll have to sort of trek. I'll have to make my own Christmas cake. That sounds laborious, and I haven't stepped foot in the kitchen in many years. So that's a great insight into my dreary personal life. Let's go to Georgina in London. Georgina, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, darling. Thank you for asking. I'm really worried about the state of this Islamic invasion that's coming across the Channel, Samara, and I'm even more worried for the fact that the British taxpayer has got to pay for it. We need referendums in Westminster. We need to know where our money's going, how much is being spent. We need to be kept informed. All these promises that they're going to stop this illegal migration by Shabana Mahmood is a dream. They're putting us in the promised land. She's got no intention, and she hasn't got the inclination to do anything about it. This for them is this is business as usual. They're not interested because they know that the British taxpayer, us, the mugs, will carry on paying whilst our own are going without. And when we have the budget next week, things are going to be 1,000 times worse because we're going to be paying more taxes.
God, that budget's so late, isn't it? So late. Well, I've never heard of a budget that late.
Well, it's a desperation budget.
Oh, they're goading us, aren't they? They're goading us into sort of oblivion, actually.
They're doing it all the time. But what's really getting my goat is the incessant lies all the time. They're lying to us hand over fist. And it doesn't seem to me, whatever they do, I mean, Keir Starmer could walk out of number 10 in a mankini and a pair of stilettos.
Please, don't assault my brain like that, Georgina.
You know,
it's just, God.
Mankini.
I need to wash my eyes out.
It's too much. Whatever they do, they get away with it. The lies, the deceit, the corruption. I've never known a corruption minister, a minister against corruption, to be thrown out of office because of corruption.
Oh, and there are people, by the way, did you see the marchers in Tower Hamlets marching because they then put that woman's auntie to death, and they were very upset that she was put to death. It's difficult to explain without the video, but you're right. Tulip Sadiq, Minister for Corruption, being fired over corruption, Minister for Homelessness being fired because she kicked people out, or not, she resigned because she kicked people out of her house and hiked up the rent by £700.
Paedophile affiliation, Lord Mandelson.
Yeah, paedophile affiliation with Lord Mandelson. Yeah. We obviously had Angela Rayner, who was the housing minister, having to step down because she didn't pay her stamp duty. The hypocrisy is off the charts, Georgina.
It is off the scale. But, you know, I've been doing a bit of research about the punishments in other countries like India, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia for the rape of children and the rape of women, and they put them to death.
Yes, and that's why a lot of them then make asylum claims saying, "Oh, I'm a pedophile. I'm so sorry. I can't get sent back because I'll get persecuted in my own country." Well, I say, go and face that. No, you're right. You're right, Georgina. I mean, by the way, not everyone coming on a small boat is a pedophile, a rapist, a crazy person. I really want to stress that. This is really not a blanket statement here. But we do see some specific cases because of good journalism that do bring light onto some of these asylum seekers that are coming across.
Absolutely. But, you know, we have got to. Why take the chance? Why import all these men, and it is mostly men, into our country when we are putting our women and our children and our men, because there's men being raped as well, at risk. Why do it? Why take the chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can see the exasperation. Britain has become a sacrificial lamb on the international stage. I think that's basically what's happened here.
So true.
And you talk about a lot of the people on the left, they will say, look, not all migrants and so on. And you put the caveat in there, not all migrants as well. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct in saying that. But when you have a community or a country that disproportionately has a higher incidence of sexual offences or violence, you are in some way importing violence and sexual assault into the country. If they're disproportionately represented, it means there is a systemic normalisation in that country, in that society. For example, what is the age of consent in Iraq? 9 years old, right?
Yeah.
So that's normalised in Iraq. And you think, fair, okay, that's their country, that's their business. But then if you have large amounts of Iraqi young men coming into this country, and if they were to be put in next to a school, for example, that's a problem. Or
we saw that in the Hadush Kabutu case. You know, we saw in the Hadush Kabutu case that, you know, when he assaulted that 14-year-old, that, you know, he felt that it was normal. And it's not all people that come over with these attitudes. I think a lot of people do come over to Britain and they think, okay, I want to adopt British values. I think we all know people like that, you know, including...
I think their first intention is economics. They want to have a better life, to earn money and make something, you know, make a good life for themselves. But fundamentally, they carry the impressions of their society, as I would carry from my society and you carry from your society. That's how it all works. That's how human nature works.
Yeah, it shouldn't be discounted.
The problem with the left and the utopian idealism is that they just disregard human nature and pretend it doesn't exist. That you know, Tom Jones from Wales is the same as someone from Iraq or Sudan or Afghanistan. It's possible that they might be the same. It's possible.
Well, these are the things that the British government just didn't think about when we allowed when we had our open doors policies. You're right. I think we had a little bit of a different view, and I agree with you. We needed to think deeper about things, or the UK should have thought deeper about things, and maybe should have made a more concerted effort to maybe do training programs for these people, show them, you know, I'm not talking about asylum seekers, because I think they should be, to be honest, deported, but make sure that we're actually not being sort of sequestered off into our communities, and we're all...
So I'll always get accused of being generalised. Myron, you're generalising on these things. But I'm saying to you, when you're dealing with macro policy on a national scale, you have to generalise.
Yeah, no, of course.
Like, you have to generalise. It's just the obvious thing to do. To not generalise is to be irresponsible. We can all admit that there are individuals who think differently and so on in any society, in any country. That's fair enough. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with policy to do with millions of people on a national level, you have to look at what is normal in some countries and then say, do you know what? This may not be compatible with what's going on here.
You make a good point. Georgina, thank you very much for that call. Let's go over to Tarquin in London. Tarquin, how are you?
Tamara, how are you? Doing a great show. Not as good as my best mate Kev, of course. But
oh my gosh, how dare you!
We're going to find you a slot, as they say in the vernacular.
They'll find,
Yeah, following off
which will be off everything.
Indeed, and I'll come round to your kitchen anytime and help ice your cake whenever you want, but just let me know, darling.
What's that a euphemism for, Tarquin?
Indeed, Georgina, the greatest female British patriot ever.
I know, Georgina for PM.
She's brilliant for sure, absolutely.
Georgina and you should get together sometime. I feel like that could be an interesting blind date.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe we should set you up. I'll get the camera crew involved.
Yeah, no, what you guys have just been talking about is I've just caught the tail end, and I just thought...
sorry, Tarquin, on to serious things.
Yeah, I just think it's incredible that since Emmeline Pankhurst and then through the Second World War in the last 50-odd years, Samara, that women's rights and equality has been built up progressively, and it's taken a long old battle there. And now it's got to the point where being imported is a culture, you know, rightly or wrongly, but it's just not compatible with the British English culture of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, that is going to send women's back into the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages in terms of equality. I mean, what the hell? Where are the Germaine Greers now? Why aren't they speaking up and saying enough but no further? I don't get it.
I agree with you. I think Germaine Greer's kind of second wave feminism that she preached about has just been completely lost on everyone. But it's coming from both sides, strangely. I mean, she lost her whole step in life because of the trans movement coming after her, because she said something that is probably something I said on air a couple of weeks ago, and she got her whole life destroyed by it, because it's coming from two separate directions. It's coming, yes, from a lot of the more conservative values that are being brought in from one side, and then the liberals, they also want to attack us. So you're right. It's like it's an unwinnable sort of battle at the moment, isn't it, Darwin?
It really is. And I think the thing is that what the left cleverly do is they conflate the race card and make it so that the right, or the right-mindedness, not right-wing, but feel that they have to shut their mouths. And that's what they want. They want us to shut up so that they can get on with their Fabian strategy.
I know. Free speech used to be a bastion of the left wing, and now it's hilarious how it's sort of jumped ship, and now we've appropriated it, and we've had to, because it's ridiculous. They're trying to shut us up, Tarquin. I mean, Myron, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best example of what we're speaking about is Jess Phillips, in a sense that, I saw she's been a great staunch campaigner for women's rights, against violence against women, all of that. So well done. But when it comes to the predominantly Pakistani rape gangs that have been going on, then what do we see from Jess Phillips? I think we see, you saw her, that outrageous situation where she stood on the dispatch box and she kind of like took offence that these grooming gang victims had made a vote no confidence in her. And you saw the outrage. And what you saw in her was this kind of pompous thing of like, I'm the gatekeeper to women's rights. I'm the gatekeeper to protecting women. So if you disagree with me, how dare you? And Keir Starmer saying there's no one in this house who has more experience than Jess Phillips. But if that was the case, why is it that we've got 5 victims of grooming gang who are saying that you are actually deliberately obfuscating the actual inquiry? You are diluting the level of the inquiry because you don't want to tackle this very pressing issue, this awkward issue, this queasy issue of ethnicity. And that's the thing with the left. They have a hierarchy of principles. They don't have principles.
Well, I spoke to quite a lot of the grooming gangs victims, and I spoke to them privately as well. Went out with them. They were a really fun time, actually. But that was a whole other conversation for another night. But the stuff they were telling me about Jess Phillips and things behind the scenes, not specifically about Jess Phillips, but how they were pressed and pressured into certain definitions when the inquiry is taking place. They didn't exactly want to focus on ethnicity. They didn't want to. They didn't want to do any of that. And they were giving them these weird time frames, saying, you've got 2 hours to get back to me about this question. They didn't want to hear it. You're right. They really didn't.
Look, we've had the Casey report out. The Casey report actually made this clear. So I don't know why we're skirting around the issue. It's not like, it's no longer...
I think I know why. There are some certain constituencies that would like to be kept.
No, fair enough. There's political reasons. But we have the kind of official reports out now, so we can't hide away from this anymore. There isn't any excuse. It's moral cowardice if we don't call it out.
No, completely. And Tarquin, you make some very good points. Do you want the last laugh?
Yeah, I just wanted to say your colleague there, sorry, what was your name again, my friend? Myron, what a brilliant point. I'd forgotten about the Jess Phillips card, but you're absolutely right. And this is why, as we all know, the only reason she and her ilk are talking in that way is because they need that vote block. That's all. And if it was on the other side of the equation, if Nigel Farage needed the Muslim Indian, then they would be very vocal against it, wouldn't they, Samara?
Yeah, they would be massively, wouldn't they? We've seen it.
Yes.
We've seen it. So, Tarquin, honestly, you're right, as always. Thank you so much for calling in. Maybe one day I'll win you over. Who knows? Barry says, Kev, just watching the snow coming down, worried stiff about global warming. Hope that pillock millipede gets stuck in the snowdrift. That's from Barry. First of all, I'm not Kev, unless Kev had some sort of voice box surgery.
We identify as Kev for the last hour.
Yeah, I am identifying as Kev, though, for the last half hour. That's so smart. We'll go to break now, but after that, we will take your calls, and I've got a couple of voice notes. Do send them in. We've just got a couple of minutes of time to get them in. So that and much more after these messages.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, make sure you do stay tuned for 10 o'clock, which is Harry Cole Saves the West. He's on a mission. He's trying to save it. Night to night, that man is really trying to save the West. And he gets some great guests on who tell us about what's going on over in America and how we can apply that to the UK. Genuinely. And then after that, you've got Andre. Andre is back. I don't think Ash is present. Oh, Ash is back from his holiday. I haven't seen Ash, so I'm going to pop out and say hi to him after the show. And they've got Pete Barnes, who I know is a massive Talk favourite. He's one of my favourites too. He'll actually be in the studio with me tomorrow on Friday. So you've got a massive couple of hours of entertainment to take you into the small hours after this news cycle. But we've got so many calls here. Let's talk to Paul in Hartlepool. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hi, are you okay? Yeah.
Am I okay? That's a pretty loaded question, Paul. But
he's not your therapist.
But no. How are you?
Okay. What I was going to say is £200 million for a COVID inquiry, right? That's just have a go at Boris Johnson. It was the equivalent of giving somebody a flat pack. With no instruction, tell them to put it together, right? And they're making a mistake, right? He hadn't been through he hadn't organised, to actually fix the pandemic, basically, It's not railroad, but all that money, and they've come back, right? And they haven't said what they do in the future or anything. All they've done is £200 million to have a go at Boris Johnson.
Paul, it's a massive joke, actually. It's at $185k a day for the COVID inquiry. Lovely to know where my taxpayer money is being spaffed away. I mean, what do you think of the COVID inquiry, Myron?
Yeah, no, I agree. It was somewhat of a joke. I mean, they've come up and basically said too little, too late is kind of like the slogan that they put out. Too little, too late. What does that mean? It was the sage experts, right? This is an advertisement to basically not trust the experts. Follow the science. Do you remember that? Zombie-like fashion. Follow the science. Trust the experts. That's what we were led to believe. Now we look back in hindsight, and it is easy to look back in hindsight. I remember the time. It was a very kind of weird and desperate time, an urgent time. But at the end of the day, this is a lesson to not get into single issue politics, not make everything about one thing. The job of a politician is to weigh up the pros and cons of multiple issues, to look at the country from a multi-dimensional perspective, and everything from the NHS to schools to all of politics became down to one single issue, which is, will I catch COVID? The daily figures of the ticker of how many COVID deaths. What about how many cancer deaths? What about how many heart attacks?
Well, how about putting some blame on China here? That's what I hate. Because, no, seriously,
Yeah,
I mean, we keep having these inquiries time and time again, looking into what our government did wrong. How about saying, what happened to China? Why exactly did they unleash a biomedical hazard out into the world and destroy mostly Western economies? Interesting, that. Well, Gary, thank you for your call there. Sorry, that's Paul. Thank you for your call. Let's go over to Gary in Wales. Gary, welcome to the show.
Hi, Samara.
Hello.
Show.
Oh, thank you.
Show. I live by Ian, Kevin, and yourself.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm in good company. There we go. Gary, I'll take that and live off it for the rest of the year.
No, to be honest, I just caught the end of that conversation. I know I'm not supposed to be talking about this, but saying about COVID, me and my wife are both mental health nurses, and during COVID, it was just ridiculous. Some of the plans, and, I'll give you one example, right? And this is ridiculous. If there's a nuclear war, Singleton will screen people for radioactivity, presuming there's a hospital thereafter.
Oh my God!
What? This is in their emergency plan.
Gary,
crazy.
That's madness. I mean, it actually circles back to what we spoke about at the start of the show, which was that a lot of these mental health checks and people getting on benefits for mental health issues, it was all done via the phone, wasn't it?
Yes, done by phone, and one A4 sheet on a scale of 1 to 10, 0.0000555. It's pretty obvious what they want you to.
Yeah, and that's how we got 1 million more people, or actually millions more, on benefits during the COVID
and
crisis.
Disability benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. No, God, that's scandalous,
ludicrous.
Gary. That is.
Oh.
Byron, you're also in the industry. Would you back Gary up with this?
Just what I missed the exact point, so I couldn't quite hear it on the.
Just basically, Gary said that he's a mental health consultant, and basically during COVID, everything was done via the phone. So people were getting popped on benefits very easily because you didn't even have to come face to face with the doctor. This is one of the biggest
catastrophes of the whole lockdown situation, is that it opened up, it rewired our brains. The work-life balance completely changed. So people started, and you might think that's a good thing, but for the economy and for the country, it was a disastrous thing. And also what happened was people started to get used to this thing called furlough. And then we can actually live off the state. And then people became curious about, what else does the state offer? How do I get onto this? And it opened up a whole different dimension that we never knew existed about the state and our relationship with the state and what we could do and how we could live our life and all of that. So COVID, like I said, it completely turned on its head the work ethic of this country and perhaps much of the world, Western world especially, I'd say.
Totally, and it's sort of like once you see your parents on benefits, then you want to get on benefits, and it's just a sort of like a snowball effect.
Yeah, and there's a whole industry of social media, TikTok videos, how to fill in this form, what buzzwords to say. All of these things start to emerge after COVID.
Andre Nash's show actually had a massive benefit sort of bludger on. I mean, she was making over £4,000 a month off benefits. I mean, goodness me. It pales, don't you think, Gary?
I was going to say to the both of you, right? I mean, I've worked agency as well, right? I'm obviously from I'm from Northern Ireland, but I'm living in South Wales, in Swansea,
right?
And I was doing agency work, right? And CAMS is basically kids' mental health, and they have WhatsApp groups on how to get admitted to CAMS units so they can get benefits. Yes.
Gary.
This is what you need. This is what you need to say. This is what you need to do. Then you'll be interviewed by a consultant psychiatrist, and they're too scared because you're a minor. This is what you need to say, and they will be admitted. And they will go home at Christmas. They will go home on their birthday, because it's totally to suit them. It's crazy.
Gary, you're so right. It is madness.
Don't forget, benefits are inflation linked, as we'll find out in the budget. There's going to be another further injection into the benefit of the welfare system. But our tax
How many people's incomes are inflation linked?
Our tax thresholds are getting freezed. So what's happening is the working person is effectively, with inflation, getting a pay cut, and those on benefits are getting a pay rise. And you start to see the complete destruction of the social contract in that respect.
Gary?
Yes, Samara, hiya.
Hello. Well, look, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a scandal. I want my producer, Kieran, to get your number after this, because, oh my goodness, I think there's a lot more to get into there.
That's a whole story.
Yeah, hearing about WhatsApp groups showing you how to get on benefits is ludicrous.
With children,
Gary, thank you for calling in. That's Gary in Wales. Let's go to a voice note. Robbie on the migrants.
Why doesn't the government turn around and say to the immigrants, yeah, you're coming over and you're going to be paying these smugglers 3 or 4 grand or whatever to come over. Give us 5,000. We'll bring you over with a safe path, and we'll sort you out and let into the country, or else you're deported. And not only that, government, by getting £5,000 off each of them instead of the smugglers, that's 2.5 million a day if there's 500 coming over.
I mean, the mind boggles, doesn't it?
So what's he saying? You pay the migrants to go, is that what he's saying?
Yeah, he's basically saying you pay in and then we have to foot the bill for the rest of the I'm pretty sure
So
that's
we're competing with the smugglers, is that what he's saying?
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Well, Samara Gill is already going to raise that fee for paying migrants to go back home, isn't she? So, and it sticks in the throat, but at the end of the day, it is cheaper than keeping them here in the long term. So I'm not happy about it, but that is what's going to happen. But in a day, I come back to the same thing: detain and deport. If you don't do it, this is a conversation is going to keep rolling on.
Well, we take soft touch to another level. I mean, I just, again, want to bring up Hadush Kabutu, who was given a 500 quid get out of here sort of bribe-esque thing, which is a whole year's worth of salary in Ethiopia where he was returned to. So it kind of, and he's someone who assaulted a 14-year-old. So yes, it probably can be a money-making thing.
We've given £500 million, well, more than £500 million, I think, to France.
Yes.
And they've gone from taking photos of the migrants leaving the shores to...
the gendarmes just stand there. They really do.
To get into buying some wellies and wading in about, what is it, like half a metre in? Like, that's all they're legally allowed to do. Then they've gone to puncturing a couple of dinghies and taking photos and so they're doing it all for £500 million. And at the same time, you see footage of migrants with their life jackets, big bright orange life jackets, marching through in Dunkirk, going to Decathlon, buying even more life jackets and dinghies and stuff, going on the bus with it.
Yeah, I got to give it to them. They got a lot of chutzpah to just get out there and want to go,
It's so brazen. They just really don't care.
It really is. Let's listen to Rob on Christmas.
All different cultures, they all take part in Christmas. They love Christmas. You know, they help putting the tree up. Quite often we buy each other presents as well. So it's absolute rubbish that these huge companies are saying, oh, non-Christians will be offended. It's absolutely not true. I've not witnessed it in my 40 years in the NHS as a nurse, anybody at all taking offence at Christmas. So they need to stop this now.
Rob, you are completely right. And I've got another text message from Becky agreeing with you. She said, hi, Samara, fabulous show and great guest tonight. There you go, Myron. I just thought I'd let you know that I'm making my Christmas cake as I listen to you. A wonderful tradition passed down to me through my nan and my mom. It is so well worth it and so much better than anything you could buy. And by the end of the process, you'll have 1 litre of sherry in it from steeping the fruit and feeding on the run up to Christmas. Tell me where you can buy a Christmas cake like that. Becky, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. You know what? You've inspired me. I am going to step foot in my barren kitchen that is basically a wasteland with a dust ball attached to it. And I'll make a Christmas cake because I do love a bit of Christmas cake, and that 1 litre of sherry is very motivating.
Yeah, I'll go back to the previous caller. It definitely is a top-down situation, this whole Christmas thing. It's been pushed down on the British public rather than a resurgence coming up. With a slight caveat, there are some Islamist preachers who do say things along the lines of you shouldn't wish someone Merry Christmas, right? And they give out a case for that. So
madness.
But
I laugh because I'm like, I cannot believe you have reminded me of an instance where that did happen to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, outside Harrods, they hand out Qurans around Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, the idea is that Jesus in Islamic tradition is a prophet. He didn't die on the cross, and he's not God incarnate. So that's a pretty important distinction between the two faiths. But I reckon most liberal Muslims are absolutely fine with Christmas, and they enjoy it just like everybody else.
Yeah, when you can see Dubai and everything celebrating Christmas.
Dubai, and a Muslim state country, probably celebrating Christmas better than we do here.
But I do also think it comes down to what we were talking about earlier, which is it's all about the coin. A lot of money to be made spending your Christmas in a hot destination like Dubai, etc. But if that's what they want to do, good for them. Let's talk to Charles in Pembrokeshire. Charles, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Charles, what did you want to say? You want to talk about benefits?
Yeah, well, it's a bit about benefits, but basically, I'm all right myself on benefits. But what I don't understand is it's completely upside down with my situation because they've just thrown loads of money at me, and then the council have said they're not going to house me, but then they're putting all these immigrants up in hotels and stuff.
I mean, that's not right, Charles.
So they're throwing lots of money at you, Charles?
Yeah. They basically put me on maximum rate everything and said, piss off, don't darken our door again. But then I can't get any housing unless I'm spending it all on a hotel.
Right, okay.
And it wouldn't last a month, do you know what I mean?
So it's like a golden goodbye. We're going to give you loads of money, but just keep quiet and stay off our case.
Yeah, I think they probably thought I'd just go and take loads of drugs and die, but that's not going to be the case, yeah.
Yeah, I think there is an increasing tension between the fact that we do have a lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless veterans in this country, and they don't seem to be able to get the help they need because apparently we're in times of austerity. And then across the road, they do see a bunch of migrants getting housed in 4-star accommodation, but I don't think it's actually the migrants' fault. They've come here and they knew that this is what they were entitled to, and under all the acts they are. Do you want to push back on that, Byron? No, because you can.
But I remember, I don't agree with Fraser Nelson about a lot of things, but one thing he did talk about he's very good at is discussing the welfare state, and he does talk about how the government essentially does stuff people with mouths of cash to shut them up and don't bother us, so that we don't have to think about you. You also don't go on the unemployment statistics. If we can get you on a disability benefit or health benefits, and therefore makes the unemployment figures look good, even though they're terrible at the moment anyway.
Fraser Nelson, by the way, is a journalist at The Spectator, great writer.
Times, I think, as well.
The Times as well. Yeah. But within this building, he's a very good writer, but he's got controversial opinions. They grate people up and down the wrong way.
Yeah. I don't agree with his views when it comes to this is the best time to ever live in Britain. London's the greatest place on earth. I mean, look, I'm paraphrasing what he's saying, but he builds up kind of like something that doesn't quite reflect the lived reality of most people in this country, I think.
I mean, it doesn't reflect what you're living with, Charles.
No. I mean, I'm going to be sleeping in potentially more snow later tonight. Do you know what I mean?
God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
There was charities round here that the Wallets, Clifford, and that, and basically the council spoke to them, and they just went, we're not going to be housing you.
That's not right. That's just not right. Charles, I really hope that you can get some help. There might be a hotline that we might be able to give you after the show.
Cool.
And I agree, just throwing money at the situation is also the issue with benefits. You're just throwing money at people. You're not actively helping them back in the workforce or out of their bad mental health state or however they are. So I don't think the government should do that. It's like a Band-Aid over a bullet hole.
But the thing about the illegal migration, and this really epitomises the whole thing. The illegal migration situation is going to be held up. Every single thing that goes wrong in a person's life, you just look at the illegal migrant and say, how is it that he gets this? How is it that he gets that?
It's not fair on community cohesion when we talk about the breakdown within our societies. I think either side isn't even to blame. It's like, we just, why has he got that when I have this?
I'm not even blaming the migrants yet. The government has put these individuals up on a pedestal and basically shoved it in people's faces at a time where people are earning a cost of living crisis, crime is soaring, all the rest of it, can't get housing crisis, every NHS crisis, all of this stuff is going on, and they're throwing it in our faces.
Charles, I really hope that you get the help that you need because you need it. Myron, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fantastic show. Thank you to each and every one of you for listening. It's Harry Cole. He's saving the West.